From the remnants of Qin Yayan's belongings, Bailey Hongzhuang found a piece of white jade. This was hanging on a pendant from around her neck. It was the only evidence that she and her biological parents could recognize each other with. Later that night, Di Bei-chen watched the absent-minded Bailey Hongzhuang, his voice concerned as he asked, "Wifey, what's going on with you today? What is it?" Since the second he saw Bailey Hongzhuang today, she was always thinking about something else. Even when she talked to him, her voice always sounded very panicked. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head a little, "Nothing." After learning the shocking news, she'd been thinking about what the truth might be. But using a single piece of white jade to search the wide sea, it was just too difficult. Di Bei-chen stared deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang and suddenly spoke, "Although I'm not sure what exactly happened, you can trust me. If you ever need my help, just give me a call." Di Bei-chen's face was serious. He truly wanted to help Bailey Hongzhuang. She immediately nodded, "Thank you." Di Bei-chen didn't say anything else. If Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to tell him, then she would have told him. If she didn't tell him, then he wouldn't ask. "You came for your acupuncture." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, "After today, you'll be able to stand up and walk again." Di Bei-chen's lips widened into a smile, "You've worked hard." These days, he could clearly feel the paralysis growing weaker and weaker. It was completely healed down to his calves, but there was still no perception in his feet. But after today's treatment, he'd be able to stand up again. The gratefulness He Mu held in his heart for Bailey Hongzhuang could reach the heavens. Ever since his little lord's legs were crippled, he had never seen him smile from his heart for a long, long time. Because of Bailey Hongzhuang, his lord was able to return his former self. Bailey Hongzhuang packed up the silver needles, her face pale. Her lips were in a wide grin, "Try standing up." Di Bei-chen was a little surprised. After living in a wheelchair for so long, he had almost forgotten how to stand up. Now, as he listened to Bailey Hongzhuang, his heart trembled with no reason. Maybe it was because he had looked forward to this day for too long. Now that the day has come, a hint of fear arose in his heart. If he couldn't stand up, then wouldn't he just be plunged right back into that deep, dark abyss? Bailey Hongzhuang silently laughed but smiled to encourage Di Bei-chen. She had seen many patients who couldn't walk like Di Bei-chen and could understand the feelings he felt right now. Di Bei-chen's face returned to its usual calmness as if he was preparing his heart. He placed his hands on the wheelchair and slowly stood up. Feeling the sense of being on the ground again, a splendid smile broke on Di Bei-chen's face. For the first time in so long, he finally stood up. Slow footsteps. Di Bei-chen walked a few steps, then suddenly, he dived into the peach blossom forest, breaking into a run. He ran so fast, that nobody would have ever believed that he was sitting in a wheelchair for so long. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled brightly. As a doctor, watching a patient run cured was naturally a good thing. He Mu was enraptured, almost too excited to say anything. Lord. Lord stood up. He truly wanted to shout it out to the world. 3 years. Their little lord has finally stood up. Dashing forward, a figure suddenly fell on Bailey Hongzhuang, wrapping her into his embrace. The fragrance of peach blossoms assaulted her senses. Her body was stiff. Di Bei-chen's face beamed with smiles as he leaned forward to whisper into her ear, "Thank you, thank you." 2 simple words, overflowing with gratitude, repeated twice. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't understand what standing up could mean for him. The stiffened body in his bosom relaxed when she heard his words. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, "You're welcome." When Di Bei-chen stood up, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly discovered he was actually very tall. Lying in his embrace, she could only reach his chest. His posture was straight, shoulders broad and muscular. It felt comfortable and safe. When Bailey Hongzhuang returned to rest, Di Bei-chen couldn't help but recall the gentle fragrance that he had cradled softly in his arms. Although he didn't know why he would suddenly make such a move, it was good that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't refuse. After Dibei Chen was cured, he acted as if he was still crippled in front of outsiders. Now wasn't the time to expose himself. But every night, Dibei Chen went to Jingli Garden with his true appearance. Bailey Hongzhuang once again retreated into closed-door cultivation. Other than going to Godly Doctor Square, she was always in her room within Jingli Garden. Right now, increasing her strength was the most important. Dibei Chen didn't bother her, only sitting quietly in the peach blossom forest until the night goes dark and he leaves. Inside the house, Bailey Hongzhuang was skillfully refining some immortality pills. Her pill-refining skills had always been good, and coupled with her spirit power, the potency was greatly enhanced. Refining such low-level immortality pills were very simple for her. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang once again went to Godly Doctor Square and directly took out a white, porcelain bottle from her heaven-earth pouch. The display case she had asked Du Tianxua to set up a few days ago would finally be used today. Noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, Du Tianxua and Dong Sairu gathered up in front of her. "Lady Bailey, what are you going to sell?" Dong Sairu wondered. Godly Doctor Square's business was blooming, so he couldn't understand what she was trying to sell. If the product has nothing to do with Godly Doctor Square, then it wouldn't be good for the shop. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled, "If you open it and take a look, won't you know?" Du Tianxua and Dong Sairu glanced at each other before immediately picking up the porcelain bottle to take a look inside. Their eyes widened as they stared. These are immortality pills?" Du Tianxua asked in disbelief. "Right." Du Tianxua swallowed his saliva. There were so many pills inside that porcelain bottle. How many immortality pills were there? A single immortality pill alone was already worth a massive price. With so many pills, Du Tianxua simply couldn't imagine the sum. "Lady Bailey, where did you get these immortality pills?" Dong Sairu asked excitedly. Immortality pills were always in constant demand. There were only a few pill masters in the imperial city, and very rarely shared their pills. Lady Bailey was too capable, managing to grab so many at once. "I refined it." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, "You go and prepare some nice packaging to wrap the immortality pills in. Put the price directly with the label, and make it 20% higher than Heavenly Jewel Pavilion's prices." Listening to her words, Du Tianxua and Dong Sairu felt their bones go soft. Heavenly Jewel Pavilion's price for the immortality pills are already very high. If we raise our price 20% higher, everybody would go to Heavenly Jewel Pavilion. Where would our business go? Even if we can't sell, just leave it on the aisles. We're not short on money, and besides, it's impossible to not sell a single one. The reason why the price should be raised by 20% is because the pills she refined were 20% more potent than the average immortality pill. Although Heavenly Jewel Pavilion's price was slightly cheaper, there was no way they could have as much pills as her. Right now, all the officers were preparing for the royal hunting feast. The moment to sell immortality pills for the low-leveled cultivators couldn't be better. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang so confident, Du Tianxua and Dong Sairu obediently started to get the brocade boxes to wrap the pills. Only the brocade boxes could match the immortality pill's value. They've always believed in Bailey Hongzhuang. That's because so far, every single action she had done was enough to make one praise her to the heavens. Every day, there were 10 patients. Each of those 10 patients were seen as untreatable by other doctors, but once they saw Bailey Hongzhuang, they would walk away healthy. There wasn't one person Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't cure. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was far younger than them, her medicinal skills were absolutely superb. As long as they walked by Bailey Hongzhuang's side, their lives would be full of honor and glory. News that Godly Doctor Square was selling immortality pills was quickly spread amongst the city. After all, Godly Doctor Square was always busy, and many people had long noticed the new aisles. With a glance, everybody discovered that godly Dr. Square was actually selling immortality pills. And furthermore, their quantity was even higher than Heavenly Jewel Pavilions. Bailey Yuyan's mood was terrible. She had just finally gotten close to Du Hanyue with great difficulty when Bailey Hongzhuang had suddenly barged in, wrecking everything for her. "Sister, being angry isn't good for your health." Bailey Haoshuan comforted her. Bailey Honghang fought for this one breath, and wasted 200,000 gold coins. She isn't a pill master, so the pill furnace would be nothing but an useless ornament when she brings it home. Listening to his words, Bailey Yuyan dipped her head a little. Her face was full of hard-to-conceal hatred. The day as pair of brother and sister get our hands on a cultivation pill, will be the day we destroy Bailey Honghang. We couldn't ask Pill Master Yun to refine us a cultivation pill, so we'll need to find some way to buy them. I'd rather we ask Heavenly Jewel Pavilion's shopkeeper to see if they could find some way to get us 2 pills. It's useless. Bailey Yuyan sighed, I already asked. Right now, everybody's rushing to buy a cultivation pill, and Heavenly Jewel Pavilion's stock has long been sold out. Right now, they're still waiting on a new shipment, and it's not sure when it'll arrive. Cultivation pills were for low-level cultivators to stabilize their foundation and boost their cultivating speed. There's no better time for young practitioners to take a cultivation pill than now, right before the Imperial Hunting Banquet. Now, the levels of strength in the younger generation were almost the same. Whoever could get a cultivation pill, their strength would grow to be a cut above the rest. It'd be very helpful for winning first place in the hunting banquet. Not everybody could get a cultivation pill, but Bailey Yuyan heard that the Prime Minister's daughter, Li Yuyue, had already obtained one. Bailey Haoshuan also frowned. He despised Bailey Hongzhuang so much that he wanted to go to the godly Dr. Square to teach her a lesson right then and there. As they worried, a conversation at a nearby table suddenly caught their attention. Did you hear yet? Godly Dr. Square started selling immortality pills, and many families had already bought cultivation pills their early morning. Furthermore, I've also heard that the price is even 20% higher than Heavenly Jewel Pavilions, but there were still a lot of people willing to buy it. Cultivation pills are nice, but it's too expensive for us to even hope to obtain. The Imperial Hunting Feast is very close, so all the court's younger generation are fighting for resources. Selling them now, godly Dr. Square must make a killing. Bailey Yuyan and Bailey Haoshuan looked at each other, their faces in stunned dismay, even wondering if their ears had gone bad. Godly Dr. Square even sells cultivation pills. Bailey Haoshuan directly walked over to that nearby table and asked, "Is what you're saying actually true?" Their conversation having been suddenly interrupted, the 3 men were very unhappy. But after recognizing Bailey Haoshuan's identity, they didn't dare to reveal any dissatisfaction and could only nod, "It's true." How could godly Dr. Square sell immortality pills? Bailey Haoshuan's face was baffled. Maybe it even had a lot of immortality pills. Could it be true, Bailey Hongzhuang is actually a pill master? Bailey Haoshuan couldn't help but cry out. Impossible. Bailey Yuyan didn't hesitate to refute Bailey Haoshuan's guess, just look at her, how could she be a pill master? In all of Xingxua continent, pill masters were a noble existence. The harsh conditions alone is enough to stop countless people from becoming one. Trash like Bailey Hongzhuang as a pill master. What a joke. Bailey Haoshuan also thought his guess was ridiculous and immediately smiled, embarrassed. Why don't we go and check out godly Dr. Square for ourselves? What they hear could be false, whereas seeing is believing. They would know once they went over to take a look. Bailey Yuyan nodded, let's go. When the two arrived at godly Dr. Square, they found a large crowd of people, all discussing the cultivation pills. This godly Dr. Bailey is really too godly. She can even bring out such rare immortality pills to sell. I heard that these immortality pills were actually personally refined by godly Dr. Bailey herself, simply unbelievable. I never expected that Lady Bailey hit herself so deeply, thinking back, we were truly laughable. When Bailey Yuyan heard that Bailey Hongzhuang herself refined the immortality pills, a mocking look appeared in her eyes. That woman was just begging to get shot in the mouth. Even after following Master Yun to learn the art of pill refining for so long, Du Hanyue was still only a pill master apprentice. He still wasn't even able to form the immortality pill's shape when he refined. Bailey Honghang spent more than 10 years in the general household. It was impossible she could have contacted a pill master, so how could she have possibly refined that? Bailey Yuyan and Bailey Haoshuan squeezed through the crowd before they could finally spot the pills lying on the shelves. Perfectly rounded immortality pills sat in the center of a brocade box. It was actually the foundation stabilizing cultivation pills they needed the most. Staring at the number of cultivation pills in that box, the two's eyes looked at each other in shock. They did everything they could to get their hands on a single cultivation pill, but there were actually so many in Godly Doctor Square. Bailey Yuyan's eyes were filled with endless jealousy. How could Bailey Hongzhuang, who she could step under the sole of her feet, have so many cultivation pills? Sister, should we buy 2? Bailey Haoshuan asked aloud. Although there was enmity between them and Bailey Hongzhuang, the hunting banquet was very soon. Right now, it was most important to increase their strength and give a good performance. Bailey Yuyan was silent for a moment before nodding her head, okay. When the two walked up to the shelves, the crowd burst into sighs, many raising their brows. Since the drafting banquet, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Yuyan's animosity towards each other became very well known and talked about. For Bailey Yuyan, who had poisoned Bailey Hongzhuang blind, many people thought she was too vicious and slowly grew estranged from her. Now that the siblings came to Godly Doctor Square, they were naturally happy to watch. 2 cultivation pills. Bailey Yuyan directly told Dong Sairu. A cultivation pill was 50,000 gold coins. Although it was 10,000 more gold coins than Heavenly Jewel Pavilion, 2 pills were still cheaper than flattering and asking Du Hanyue. It just so happened that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't here right now, so she could buy a cultivation pill and tilt the scales. Bailey Haoshuan's face was full of joy. Before the royal hunting feast, he could finally get his hands on a cultivation pill. Dong Sairu looked at the 2 Bailey siblings and couldn't help but snicker in her heart. Lady Bailey's prediction really came true. Bailey Yuyan and Bailey Haoshuan actually came. Noticing Dong Sairu didn't move for a long time, Bailey Yuyan couldn't help but frown. Give it to me. Our boss said, the pills can be sold to anyone but those of the general's household. Dong Sairu's voice was apathetic. This stupid woman was too vicious. She bullied their boss for so many years, and still wants to buy an immortality pill from here. Dream on. Hearing her words, Bailey Yuyan and Bailey Haoshuan's faces both became black. It was Bailey Hongzhuang. The crowd couldn't help but laugh. Bailey Yuyan was always so evil, it was only right for Bailey Hongzhuang to not sell her anything. Bailey Hongzhuang isn't here right now. How about I give you 1,000 extra gold coins as a gift and you can give me 2 cultivation pills? Bailey Yuyan asked, her voice hushed. She can't ignore her image in front of so many people, this was the only way. You want to bribe me? A trace of disdain appeared in Dong Sairu's eyes, no way. When they were down and broke, Bailey Hongzhuang was the one who gave them a job. Now, not only did she treat them very well, and even freely taught them her medicinal skills. She always felt that she was most fortunate to have the honor to follow by Bailey Honghang's side. Let alone 1,000 gold coins, even if it was 10 million gold coins, she wouldn't hesitate to refuse. The 2 of you go. Godly Doctor Square doesn't welcome you. The words Du Tianxua was even more impolite. He could feel nothing but disgust for the 2, they were an eyesore just standing there. Watching Du Tianxua and Dong Sairu's attitude, Bailey Yuyan was furious. What are you? Daring to speak to me like that, you must be impatient to die. She was the eldest miss of the general household. Her identity couldn't be compared to a commoner, so how could she let the guys look down on her so much? Bailey Haoxuan's face was cold. If you don't want to die, obediently hand over the immortality pills. Losing your life for Bailey Hongzhuang isn't worth it. I never thought that a Bailey-born son would actually threaten to take a human life just for some cultivation pills. The light, sweet voice held traces of disdain and contempt. Everybody saw a white figure slowly walking out from inside Godly Doctor Square. Who could this person be, but Bailey Hongzhuang? Bailey Yuyan and Bailey Haoxuan's faces changed. With the current situation, they fear that they'd be ridiculed in every way possible. Only 1,000 gold coins, isn't Lady Bailey just too stingy? Her exquisite, jade-like face revealed a small smile, but the depths of her black eyes were cold. Bai Li Hong Zhuang. Bailey Yuyan spat between clenched teeth. She didn't know when Bailey Hongzhuang started acting this way after forgetting to teach her a lesson. These immortality pills were brought by somebody else to sell to everybody, so why are you not letting us buy them? Bailey Haoxuan's voice was chilly. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Who told you these immorality pills were brought here to be sold by someone else? If it wasn't, is it possible you refined them yourself? Bailey Yuyan asked mockingly. Yes, it's what I've refined. Bailey Hongzhuang, I never knew that you were actually so shameless, able to talk nonsense without the least bit of embarrassment. Bailey Yuyan's words were merciless, oozing with ridicule. She wanted to show everybody Bailey Hongzhuang's true colors. Bailey Hongzhuang still smiled coldly, her voice menacing. Your eyes can't see what I've refined. Besides, even if I didn't refine the immortality pills, so what? If I say don't sell, it's not for sale. With that, Bailey Hongzhuang raised her voice. Godly Doctor Square doesn't welcome anyone of the general's household. If someone buys a pill and gives it to the general's household, once discovered, shall never enter Godly Doctor Square again. The indifferent, cold voice was overbearing and decisive, clearly resounding in everybody's ears. Whoever was weighing the scales in their hearts immediately perished the thoughts once they heard her words. Whether it was Bailey Hongzhuang's medicinal skills or a large number of cultivation pills in Godly Doctor Square, it all reflected just how powerful Godly Doctor Square was. Going against Godly Doctor Square for the general's household, it simply wasn't worth it. Bailey Yuyan was livid. Bailey Hongzhuang, you're bullying us. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile widened, becoming all the more enchanting. I'm bullying you, what can you do about it? You're courting death. With a loud roar, Bailey Haoxuan's inner chi suddenly erupted around his body as his right hand formed a fist, forming winds as he mercilessly punched towards Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Does this woman really think that they wouldn't dare to raise their hands against her under the glare of the public eye? He needed to teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson, letting her fully understand just who it is that's superior. The light in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes sharpened, astonishing bursts of murderous intent as her eyes opened. She held out her hands in front of Bailey Haoxuan, welcoming his punch. Bang! Inner chi collided, sparks flying in the air. When Bailey Haoxuan saw Bailey Hongzhuang stretch out her hands, his heart suddenly got a bad feeling. It was well known that Bailey Hongzhuang was unable to cultivate and that Bailey Haoxuan was a practitioner in the intermediate stage of mysterious earth realm. If the fist flies down, Bailey Hongzhuang might get seriously injured. But, under everybody's astonished eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang actually held Bailey Haoxuan's fist in her hands. Bailey Hongzhuang was completely unharmed. Bailey Haoxuan looked at her, horrified. Although he had already known she could cultivate the night she left the general's household, he still believed that no matter what, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't be his opponent. But in that tight grip, he could clearly feel that Bailey Hongzhuang was actually even stronger than he was. This is impossible. Bailey Haoxuan was stunned as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Just when did she start cultivating? Bailey Yuyan was also shocked. She knew that Bailey Haoxuan didn't hold back just now. But even so, Bailey Honghang was still alive. What could that mean? You quickly let go of me. Bailey Haoshuan roared. Subdued by Bailey Hongzhuang in front of so many people, it was just too shameful. What if I don't let go? The light in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes was cold. It was always Bailey Haoshuan's arrogant manners that had disgusted her the most. If you don't let go, I'll kill you. Bailey Haoshuan's voice hardened, growing even colder. Bailey Hongzhuang dared to make him lose so much face. He needs to kill her. It looks like you still don't know the current situation. An enchanting laugh spilled out from her cherry-red lips, but her ink-black eyes were covered in ice. The next moment, under everybody's stunned gaze, the palm of her hand ruthlessly struck Bailey Haoshuan's wrist. Gotcha! The crisp sound of broken bone rang in everybody's ears, followed by Bailey Haoshuan's piercing screams. Ah! Drip! Drop! Drip! Drop! Blood dripped onto the ground, its deep red color provoking everyone's eyes. Bailey Haoshuan's hand was crippled by Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Yuyan was still standing in the same place as before. Everything had happened too fast, and she never thought Bailey Hongzhuang would even dare to fight back against Bailey Haoshuan. When she finally reacted, it was too late. Bailey Hongzhuang, you dared to hurt Haoshuan, could it be that you really don't want to live? Bailey Yuyan's voice was angry. Bailey Haoshuan was Bailey Jintao's only son and was always deeply loved. Now Bailey Hongzhuang dared to break his hands, isn't she afraid of earning Bailey Jintao's wrath? I never did anything to you in the past, but didn't you just try to kill me? Now saying such words to me, isn't it laughable? Since the start, she was always in the worst position, so what else does she need to worry about? Bailey Yuyan was startled. She couldn't refute Bailey Hongzhuang's words. Bailey Hongzhuang, I will not let you off. Bailey Haoshuan clenched his teeth. His eyes had gone completely red with blood. Since birth, he had never been so seriously injured. Looking into his eyes full of hatred, Bailey Honghang slowly walked to him, her right hand patting Bailey Haoshuan's face. TSK, that look is really fierce. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang's voice changed. Did you know, for the past 14 years, I've been using that expression to stare at you? The words Bailey Honghang asked were in a whisper. Bailey Haoshuan couldn't help but tremble. He suddenly felt that Bailey Honghang was truly frightening. If you're smart, then the next time you see me, it's best to make a detour. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as simple as a single hand that's broken. Bailey Hongzhuang stood up and looked at Bailey Yuyan and Bailey Haoshuan indifferently. Now, scram. Her charming face livid with anger, Bailey Yuyan really wanted to just rush up to Bailey Hongzhuang and hit her. But right now, Bailey Haoshuan's situation couldn't be delayed. They needed to find a good doctor as soon as possible to treat his hand, otherwise, Bailey Haoshuan's life would be ruined. After the two siblings left, the crowd felt endless emotion. This Bailey Honghang was truly different. Handling her matters ruthlessly without dragging her feet, everyone shivered. But when they thought of what the Bailey siblings had done, they could only feel that Bailey Hongzhuang's actions were right. If you were lenient with them, they'd only come back more ruthless. The news was quickly spread around the imperial capital, and Bailey Hongzhuang started to become a very influential figure in the city. Bailey Honghang refused to sell her immortality pills to the general's household, and had even crippled Bailey Haoshuan's hand in front of everybody's eyes. Prime Minister Li Qingqian's people, and those who weren't on good terms with Bailey Jintao were all enjoying the chaos. Who knew Bailey Jintao would be so blind? In their opinion, between Bailey Jintao's three children, Bailey Yuyan, Bailey Haoshuan, and Bailey Hongzhuang, Bailey Hongzhuang had the most potential. But now, she had become Bailey Jintao's opponent. It was just too funny, a single Bailey Hongzhuang could beat Bailey Jintao left and right. Jingli Garden. I heard you taught Bailey Haoshuan a lesson today. Di Bei Chen asked, smiling. Bailey Honghang nodded a little. News spreads fast in the imperial city. It had only been a short 4 hours since it happened, but so many people already know. Bailey Haoxuan is Bailey Jintao's treasured son. Now that you've crippled his hand, I'm afraid that Bailey Jintao won't forgive you. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow. She wanted to know why Di Bei Chen mentioned such a thing. I think we should marry earlier. Once you're my wife, Bailey Jintao no longer have the least bit of influence over you. What do you think? Di Bei Chen smiled as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang was a little startled. She never expected for Di Bei Chen to come out with such a story. Her mind thought rapidly as she gazed at Di Bei Chen. Suddenly, she smiled. Good. Bailey Hongzhuang was still under Bailey Jintao's influence. Outsiders didn't know what happened inside the general household's walls, so many people in the imperial city were calling her unfilial and disrespectful. Di Bei Chen saying such a thing now meant he was worried for her. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang agree so happily, Di Bei Chen's smile grew more and more brilliant. His eyes that were like shattered gems glittered brightly. If you don't mind, I'll start preparing the betrothal gifts. Di Bei Chen grinned quietly. Bailey Hongzhuang slightly frowned. I've cut off all ties with the general's household, so I wouldn't be marrying from that house. No problem. Di Bei Chen wasn't surprised. So then how about you marry from Jingli Garden? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Her actions would have certainly been seen as random or stupid by others, but Di Bei Chen always understood what she thought. Little Lord, Bailey Jintao was furious when he heard about what happened, and was preparing to go teach Lady Bailey a lesson at Godly Doctor Square. He Mu's face was heavy as he reported to Di Bei Chen. Should I send some people to teach Bailey Jintao a lesson himself? Although he knew his lord would refute it, he just couldn't help it. When Lady Bailey wasn't good, she was treated unjustly by the general's household. Now, Bailey Haoxuan even threatened to kill her, saying she was an unfilial daughter. Before, when Bailey Yuyan had blinded Lady Bailey, they've never seen Bailey Jintao give Bailey Yuyan the slightest bit of punishment. Send someone to warn Bailey Jintao. Make sure not to expose our identity. Di Bei Chen's eyes glimmered with cold light. Bailey Hongzhuang was one of his people. Whoever dared to bully her, he'll never let off. When He Mu heard Di Bei Chen's words, he couldn't help but stare at him, stunned. Usually when he proposed the idea, his little lord would never agree. How could it be different now? Could it be because of Lady Bailey? I'll start at once. He Mu said excitedly. Wait a minute. Di Bei Chen suddenly stopped him. He Mu couldn't help but worry. His little lord didn't change his mind, right? Cripple that old codger's hand as well. As you wish. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang went to Godly Doctor Square as usual, waiting for Bailey Jintao to come and cause trouble. With Bailey Jintao's temper, once he knew she was the one who crippled Bailey Haoxuan's arm, he'd never let her off. But after waiting a whole day in Godly Doctor Square, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't even catch a glimpse of Bailey Jintao. A touch of doubt appeared in her eyes. Bailey Jintao, that old codger isn't going to not come, is he? Little Black asked as he hopped. Little White also thought it was strange. I doubt that old crank's kind enough to. As Bailey Hongzhuang thought, Ji Wenbin walked over smiling. Bailey Hongzhuang, I heard something funny. What's so funny? Yesterday, didn't you cripple Bailey Haoxuan's hand? Ji Wenbin's face was full of glee. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Yes, everybody knew about that yesterday. What's funny? Ji Wenbin waved his hands. That's not the funniest part. The funniest thing is that just today, the general household's General Bailey Jintao's hand also got crippled. Bailey Honghang was startled. Is that the truth? Of course it's true. I've only just heard myself, but pretty soon, everybody would know. Ji Wenbin laughed, the general's household has been bullying you for so long, now the evil they've done are being repaid in kind. Her exquisite face smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but think of Di Beichen. Could this matter? Be because of him? Currently, the general's household was in chaos. Su Wanjing knew that Bailey Househuan's right hand was broken. Although the doctor had reconnected the bones, it would take 3 months to completely heal. He wouldn't be able to participate in the royal hunting feast. She was hoping for Bailey Jintao to go and teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson. Her precious son had never been injured for so many years. Bailey Hongzhuang dared to hit Househuan, it was absolutely unforgivable. But now, Bailey Jintao was actually in front of her, clutching his lacerated right hand. "Lord, what happened to you?" Su Wanjing asked, concerned. Bailey Jintao's expression was very ugly. "Nothing, don't ask." The facts were difficult to accept. Before he could even see his appearance, he was punched, and his right hand directly crippled. Although Bailey Jintao didn't know who that person was, he knew the man had some sort of relationship to Bailey Hongzhuang. Just before he had disappeared, a few words were whispered into his ears, "Don't bother Bailey Hongzhuang, or suffer the consequences." He was terrified. He wasn't at all an opponent for this man who was able to quietly sneak into the general's household. If he were to look for trouble with Bailey Hongzhuang, he's afraid that the general's household will have it difficult. At this moment, Bailey Jintao suddenly felt very regretful. If he knew Bailey Hongzhuang had such a large force supporting her, he never would have treated Bailey Hongzhuang the way he did. Godly Dr. Square alone was a humongous treasure. Moreover, isn't it even selling immortality pills there now? Then thinking about all those years spent protecting the useless Bailey Yuyan, he just couldn't understand why he had made such a choice. Seeing how serious Bailey Jintao looked, Su Wanjing didn't dare to ask any further. She turned and said, "Lord, no matter what, you need to get revenge for Househuan." That was what had originally made Bailey Jintao worry so much. Now that he heard Su Wanjing mention it again, for some reason, his heart felt incredibly annoyed. His skill was inferior to the person who hit him, and now you want me to accompany him in losing face. Bailey Jintao flew into a rage before pointing his finger in Bailey Yuyan, his voice furious, "Know your place a little and don't go leave the household to cause trouble again. You can't bother Bailey Hongzhuang again, understand?" Bailey Yuyan looked at Bailey Jintao, stunned. Why would father suddenly protect Bailey Hongzhuang? Su Wanjing was also stunned. Last night, he had clearly said that he'd teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson she wouldn't forget. How did his attitude turn a complete 180 from last night? After his wound was dressed, Bailey Jintao left. Today really made him worry. The sunlight was golden, shining brightly. It was a fine, spring day. When Bailey Hongzhuang left her room, she suddenly found that Jingli Garden had changed greatly. The maids and manservants shuttled around the estate, she almost even thought she was in the wrong place. Her face was stiff as she walked around. Looking at the familiar peach blossom forest, Bailey Hongzhuang knew she wasn't at the wrong place and immediately walked over to Jingli Garden's gates. "Congratulations to Lady Bailey. Congratulations to Lady Bailey." When they saw Bailey Hongzhuang come out, the maids and manservants immediately started to bow and congratulate her. The look on Bailey Hongzhuang's face was strange. She didn't know what was wrong with these people. Then she saw the red lanterns being raised high into the air. The usual peaceful calm in Jingli Garden turned bright and festive. Outside the gates, the carriages were constantly unloading items. Watching the scene that was full or red, 2 words instantly popped up in Bailey Hongzhuang's mind, dowry. Sure enough, Di Beichen popped up in front of her, "Wifey, are you satisfied with your hubby's dowry?" Looking at the piles of gifts in front of the gates, a smile appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's lips. Just barely. The betrothal gifts were extremely extravagant compared to other women when they married. Even when a royal prince married, there'd still only be half as much. Just barely enough. Di Bei-chen pretended to frown, turn around and take a look. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was confused, she still turned her head. She didn't understand just what Di Bei-chen wanted her to see. Master, look, look. The name plaque changed. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes to look at the signboard, and discovered that the 3 characters, Jingli Garden, had been replaced at some unknown time to Qinzhuang Garden. Wifey, this is also one of the betrothal gifts. Di Bei-chen said with a smile. The loud noises had already attracted many people. At first, many people were skeptical when they saw Di Bei-chen bringing the betrothal gifts to Jingli Garden. Didn't the emperor marry Di Bei-chen to Bailey Hongzhuang? However, Di Bei-chen didn't bring the betrothal gifts to the general's household, but instead here. It was just too strange. But when everyone saw Bailey Hongzhuang come out of Qinzhuang Garden, everybody instantly had a flash of understanding. So Bailey Hongzhuang was living here. Prince Chen's betrothal gifts are so generous, it's much more than the other prince's gifts. One person exclaimed. Other royal marriages were also very lavish, making others feel amazed. But none of them could compare to Di Bei-chen's astonishing betrothal gifts. Note: Qinzhuang takes the zhuang from Hongzhuang's name, and qin means to marry. This proves Prince Chen cares a lot about Lady Bailey, but Lady Bailey is just too great of a woman. I don't think any number of betrothal gifts could be able to equal her in worth. Everybody nodded their heads. Xianyuan Huan and Bailey Jintao must have been blind. Such a good woman like Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't lose at all compared to Li Yuyue and Bailey Yuyan. It was Prince Chen's good fortune. But Prince Chen should have went to the general's household to bring the betrothal gifts. If he brought everything to Qinzhuang Garden, then where would the general household's face go? Hearing his words, everyone was stunned. Right, isn't the Prince Chen just treating the general's household like air by doing this? Haven't you guys seen how stiff Lady Bailey's and the general's household relationship was? Maybe it's Lady Bailey's own idea. Everybody suddenly understood. Earlier in Godly Doctor Square, Bailey Hongzhuang and the 2 Bailey siblings' relationship was extremely terrible. If her days in the general's household was full of suffering, then it was much better for her to just leave and live outside. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile grew soft as she watched the servants bring the gifts into her house. In that moment, she felt as if everyone else's thoughts were meaningless. As long as she and Di Bei-chen could understand each other's, it was enough. Presenting such lavish betrothal presents here, aren't you afraid of offending Bailey Jintao? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Di Bei-chen raised his long eyebrows. The reason why son-in-law fears father-in-law is because he's worried that father-in-law won't allow his daughter to get married. Since you've promised me, husband and wife would naturally make a united front. You hate, I hate even more. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slowly curled into a smile. I'm very happy with these betrothal gifts. There's a propitious day in 7 days. I told the emperor to let us wed on that day. What do you think? It's your choice. But our marriage is nothing but a scam. It isn't real. Bailey Hongzhuang stressed the words. Di Bei-chen didn't seem to care and just nodded. I understand. But if wifey wants us to start as an act, and later truly falls in love with me, I won't mind. Bailey Hongzhuang needed him to avoid trouble, and he also needed her to pull wool over others' ears and eyes. Getting married, it was a win-win situation. I'll mind. Wifey, your hubby will be sad if you say that. That's enough. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at him, smiling quietly. I'm in a good mood, let's go out and eat. You're in a good mood. You aren't lying. Of course. While Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Bei-chen went to eat and drink at the restaurant happily, Bailey Jintao's lungs were bursting in rage. This Di Bei-chen's going too far. He didn't even give me the least bit of face. Beili Jintao viciously threw a teacup on the ground. The imperial city was big and rumors were easily spread. Beili Hongzhuang and Dibei Chen's marriage was just too eye-catching. Everybody knew that Li Qingxie was just waiting for a chance to embarrass him. Now, he just became the biggest joke of the imperial city. Father, it must have been Beili Hongzhuang who asked Prince Chen to do this. Prince Chen wouldn't have any reason otherwise. Beili Yuyan's face was livid. Beili Hongzhuang's actions were growing more and more excessive. Lord, I believe Beili Honghang dared to do this because we didn't retaliate back. If we don't do something, I'm afraid that girl will become even worse. Su Wanjing's eyes were glittering with hatred. She really couldn't wait to kill that girl. If it wasn't for Beili Hongzhuang, Beili Haoshuan would have never missed his chance to present his brilliance, full of glory at the royal hunting feast. Later. Nighty-night. This is too outrageous, I must go and ask the emperor to discipline Prince Chen. Beili Jintao was furious. He was always respected his whole life, when was he ever so humiliated? Lord, why aren't you going forward to teach that girl a lesson? Su Wanjing asked unhappily. Is it because that girl had prospects so you wanted to repair your father-daughter relationships? Right now, Beili Hongzhuang was a very powerful figure in the imperial city. Whether it was her medicinal skills or the immortality pills, the absolute majority of influential officials all wanted to build a relationship with her. It wasn't surprising for Beili Jintao to have a similar idea. Talking nonsense. Beili Jintao angrily rebuked, nobody asked you to speak. With a flip of the hand, that mysterious man could have easily ended his life. Between pride and his life was naturally more important. So viciously denounced by Beili Jintao, a small glimmer like crystal couldn't help but appear in the corners of Su Wanjing's eyes. Throughout the years, the general had always treated her very well. Ordinarily, he would usually never say any cruel words to her. But now because of Beili Hongzhuang, she's been scolded many times already by the general. Beili Yuyan snuck a look at the sad Su Wanjing and couldn't help but stand up. Father, any discerning person could see that this was Beili Hongzhuang's fault, so why would you still want to protect her? If you had the ability to beat that girl, then I wouldn't be so upset. Beili Yuyan's face paled. The hate in her heart for Beili Hongzhuang was at its extreme. If it wasn't for Beili Hongzhuang, then her looks never would have become like this. The Imperial Palace. Xianyuan Yutian and Jiang Jining were playing Go together. Xianyuan Yutian placed down a black stone. I'm afraid Beili Jintao would have vomited blood from anger by now. Jiang Jining followed up, laying down a white stone as she said, he's taking the consequences for his own actions. If Beili Jintao had never treated Beili Hongzhuang so terribly, she never would have done these things. In fact, she would have even grown to become his backbone. Oh. Xianyuan Yutian raised an eyebrow, you think Beili Hongzhuang's good? Jiang Jining quietly smiled and nodded, I think this girl's quite unique, what might the emperor think? This time, Beili Jintao was blind. Otherwise, Beili Hongzhuang would have become a very good candidate to become the crown princess. Xianyuan Yutian sighed. If he hadn't found out so late, then he never would have rescinded Huaner and Beili Hongzhuang's engagement. But an emperor's words wasn't a joke. Even he felt that it was a pity it couldn't be changed. Today, news about Dibei Chen's betrothal gifts have already spread it everywhere in the imperial city and left no face for Beili Jintao. If he comes to the palace, Emperor, Jiang Jining hesitated. Dibei Chen's identity was very special, and also knew that the emperor was currently caught in a very difficult situation. I'll have to soothe Beili Jintao. Xianyuan Yutian's eyes were very complicated. Although they've already been silent for 3 years, we still can't take them lightly. We can't let Dibei Chen make a move. Jiang Jining's eyes grew startled, understanding what Xianyuan Huan meant. This time, they can only wrong Beili Jintao. Time trickled slowly as the next 3 days passed. During that time, Bailey Honghang never caught even a glimpse of Dibei Chen, who was preparing for the wedding. Instead, she became a complete idler, holed up all day in Godly Doctor Square and Qinzhuang Garden, asking nothing of the wedding. Qinzhuang Garden's changes weren't small at all. Dibei Chen brought over waves after waves of nannies, maids, and manservants to put Qinzhuang Garden in order. Bright, red colors could be seen everywhere in Qinzhuang Garden, the air full of festivity. Although everybody moved around busily, thick joy could be seen on their faces. Their prince was finally getting married. The sky still wasn't bright as nannies and maids all clustered around Bailey Hongzhuang's body, waiting for her to put on the red dress before beginning to help Bailey Hongzhuang apply her makeup. Everything was done step by step, and everyone was very busy. Bailey Honghang was similar to a doll as people draped jewelry on her and combed her hair into a xinyan. She never thought that a marriage would actually have to be so complicated. She finally understood why Dibei Chen was so busy to the point where she couldn't even catch a glimpse of him. Just understanding these customs, the personalized wedding dress, and looking for an experienced nanny alone would take an unimaginably long time. Master! Master! The black and white fluff balls were tragically tossed aside by the nanny and bumped into a maid before dropping on the floor. Many people were busily walking, the two fluff balls under the constant threat of being trampled on. Hearing their cries, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly discovered their situation and immediately withdrew them back to the primordial chaos ring. Any later, and they might have been stomped flat as a pancake. Ji Wenbin, Dong Sairu, and Du Tianxua arrived at Qinzhuang Garden early in the morning. They had long known that Bailey Hongzhuang had wanted to marry from Qinzhuang Garden and wanted no relation to the general's household. Usually, it was very lively when a bride was to be married. But the huge Qinzhuang Garden had only Bailey Hongzhuang and no family members to give their blessings. It was rather regrettable. Since they were her friends, they decided to come today and act as her family. At the very least, they sincerely hoped for Bailey Hongzhuang to be happy. When they entered Bailey Hongzhuang's room, the three people were frightened. The room was just like a battlefield. Groups of servants surrounded her as they unceasingly stacked various things on her face, hair, and body. Dong Sairu shrank his neck. Princess's battle plan for marriage is really unusual. I've never seen a strategy like this. It'd be strange if you have seen one. Du Tianxua laughed. The princess's identity is honored and dignified. If it wasn't for Brother Ji kindly introducing us, we simply never would have gotten the chance to see a princess's wedding. In such a boring situation, Bailey Hongzhuang could only think about how slow the time was. Finally, the nanny looked at her and nodded with satisfaction. So beautiful. This is the most beautiful princess I've ever seen. Not only the nanny but the other people in the room were also stunned when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang. This beauty was enough to ruin a kingdom. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at herself in the bronze mirror. For a few seconds, she couldn't help but be completely stupefied. Her long, black hair was pulled up high, combed into a unique, elegant bun that was perfect for a princess, slender, willow-like brows gentle and elegant. A pair of phoenix eyes glittered brightly, a hint of red on her cheeks. Her fine, jade-like nose was small and delicate, cherry-red lips holding a charming luster. What was most notable was the specially painted peach blossom drawn between her brows, just like Qinzhuang Garden that was full of peach blossoms. It symbolized the flowers Dibei Chen had gifted her along with the house, the feelings between her and Dibei Chen. Her ivory-like skin was as smooth as water, coupled with a large, red gown. It radiated nobility and grace, peerlessly elegant. Everything was ready and all the people in the room retreated outside. All that was left was to wait for the auspicious time to arrive, for the prince to escort the bride to the wedding. Seeing Ji Wenbin and the others enter the room, Bailey Hongzhuang opened her mouth to reveal a bright smile. "You've come. But Ji Wenbin, Dong Sairu, and Du Tianxua just stood there, frozen in place. Looking at the beauty in front of them, Bailey Hongzhuang full of grace and incomparable elegance, a kind unspeakable shock appeared in their hearts. So beautiful. This was a beauty beyond their wildest imaginations. In that moment, they clearly understood the gap between them and Bailey Hongzhuang. The general's household's eldest miss, the crown princess, she was even more beautiful than both of them. Usually when they were together, Bailey Hongzhuang had never acted proud or arrogant. They've never really thought of any real distance between them and the amiable Bailey Hongzhuang. But seeing her now, they discovered just how large the distance between them was. Hongzhuang, you're so beautiful today. Not even the most beautiful lady in the imperial capital can compare to you at all. Dong Sairu praised honestly, her voice full of excitement. She swore that she never saw anyone as beautiful in her entire life. Even though she was a woman as well, she wasn't the slightest bit jealous because she clearly knew of the distance between them and instead looked up to her. Before, the imperial city never seriously chose who was the most beautiful woman in the imperial city, but many people believed that Bailey Yuyan was the most beautiful. The rumor vanished once Bailey Yuyan was disfigured. After Bailey Yuyan was disfigured, the Prime Minister's daughter, Crown Princess, Li Yuyue was believed to be the most beautiful by the public. Originally, the best woman in the imperial capital was Li Yuyue and Bailey Yuyan had just wandered in. But now that Bailey Yuyan was disfigured and lost her qualifications, the title of Most Beautiful naturally fell back on Li Yuyue's head. Nowadays, Li Yuyue was extremely proud and grew more and more arrogant, openly proclaiming her title as the most beautiful woman in the imperial capital. But in Dong Sairu's eyes, Li Yuyue couldn't even compare to Bailey Hongzhuang. Ji Wenbin and Du Tianxua also nodded their heads. Her beauty was simply unforgettable. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled but didn't put Dong Sairu's words in her heart. An unwarranted title just held no meaning for her. Hongzhuang, I wish you happiness. Ji Wenbin blessed heartfully. He had always seen Bailey Hongzhuang as a sister, and now looking at Bailey Hongzhuang in her red wedding dress, his heart sighed with emotion. Thank you. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were soft. I'm very lucky to have such wonderful friends like you all to accompany me on my wedding day. Since the moment she'd left the general's household, she always felt lonely. But now as she looked at the three bright, smiling faces in front of her, she realized that was never alone. Hongzhuang, today you aren't getting married from the general's household. The general's household, Ji Wenbin frowned slightly. This was just blatant contempt at the general's household. Shouldn't you fear the general's rage? After all, this marriage was something the whole city watched, and even the emperor himself will come. If Bailey Hongzhuang is marrying from Qinzhuang Garden, where would the general's face be put? Will the general even attend the wedding? If Bailey Jintao didn't attend, then there isn't anything to talk about. But if Bailey Jintao did attend, it wouldn't be leaving him any face at all. Bailey Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow, whether they come or not, what does that have to do with me? She had already broken all ties with the general's household and wasn't even related to the general's household by blood. If she marrying today will lose the general face, then all these years, the general had never given her any face. After more than a decade without a shred of dignity, bit by bit, she'll start to earn it back. Bailey Jintao needs a good taste of shame. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, the three looked at each other in blank dismay. It seems like Bailey Hongzhuang and the general's household's relationship was already irreconcilable. I'm just worried if you do that, Bailey Jintao will do something on the big day. Bailey Hongzhuang laughed, with the emperor's presence, as long as he has a brain, he wouldn't dare to try and cause trouble. Hearing this, the three realized they were worries of Bailey Jintao coming to ruin the wedding in anger were meaningless. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang mentioned it, with the emperor present, Bailey Jintao can only swallow his anger. General's household. Bailey Jintao, Su Wanjing, Bailey Yuyan, and Bailey Haoshuan were gathered in the front hall, their faces all very ugly. They had always thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would have no choice but to return to the general's household to get married. After all, marrying alone from another place was just simply too sad. They've even had a good time thinking of ways to ridicule her before preparing Bailey Hongzhuang for the marriage. But all day, there wasn't even the slightest bit of news. Only today, were they completely sure that Bailey Hongzhuang was marrying from Qinzhuang Garden. She was completely ignoring the general's household's existence, marrying from somewhere else. Even Di Beiqin didn't ask them so much a single question before arranging the wedding all by himself. They never even put the general's household in their sight. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beiqin are too much. Bailey Yuyan spoke angrily. Like this, they didn't give the general's household any face at all. Bailey Jintao's face was gloomy. Throughout his life, he was always respected, but never expected to lose face twice because of Bailey Hongzhuang. The last time, the emperor only comforted him a little and did nothing to punish Di Beiqin. In the end, he could only swallow his anger. He couldn't understand. Last time, he could tell the emperor clearly didn't favor Di Beiqin, so how could his attitude suddenly turn a complete 180? Lord, since Bailey Hongzhuang never put us in her sight, let's just not attend the wedding. Su Wanjing's normally gentle face was filled with hard-to-conceal anger. She truly regretted not directly killing Bailey Hongzhuang earlier. Hearing Su Wanjing's words, Bailey Jintao's anger exploded. The emperor himself bestowed the marriage and is even personally attending as a guest. If we don't come, won't we be seen as disrespecting the emperor? This was what he was the most furious at. Bailey Hongzhuang's actions simply left him with no other way out, trapping him. Did Bailey Hongzhuang think of all this a long time ago? If so, then Bailey Hongzhuang was just too terrible. He had been worrying since yesterday. If he attended the wedding, then Li Qingqian would be able to taunt him to death. Just the thought of it was enough to make his scalp turn numb. Su Wanjing was startled. She never thought of it that way. Lord, are we not going to go? Su Wanjing's expression was ugly. She originally wanted to see that girl crawling back meekly, but now that she even had to attend her meeting, her heart simply couldn't stand it. Nonsense. Bailey Jintao looked at Su Wanjing, disgusted. This woman simply had no brains at all. She couldn't help him with any of his troubles and asked him about every single thing. It was just sickening. Su Wanjing's face paled. Just now, she had clearly seen disgust in Bailey Jintao's eyes. She had been married to Bailey Jintao for many years. Even though there was at first a Qin Yayun, Bailey Jintao had never been angry at her. And now, because of Qin Yayun's door, Bailey Jintao is actually beginning to hate her. Thinking up to here, Su Wanjing's tears couldn't help but flow out from her eyes. Lord, how could you do such to me? Bailey Jintao was originally vexed, and when he saw Su Wanjing tears spill out, his heart had a burst of irritation. All day, you only know how to cry. What else can you do but cry? Su Wanjing's figure trembled as the tears grew more and more violent. An unspeakable sadness spread from the bottom of her heart. Seeing this, Bailey Haoshuan took a few steps forward and spoke, Father, since we can't do anything now, we might as well participate in the wedding with dignity. No matter the outcome, you are still an honored general. Who dares to tell us what to do? Even if that Prime Minister Li taunts us, it's no big deal if we just ignore them. I believe that he wouldn't dare to call us out just to mock us. Bailey Jintao's face relaxed slightly as he proudly looked at Bailey Haoshuan. In this family of his, only Bailey Haoshuan could share his worries. As for Su Wanjing and Bailey Yuyan, they were only good for causing trouble. The auspicious time arrived. Bailey Hongzhuang left Qinzhuang Garden, surrounded by a cluster of nannies and maids. In the garden, Bailey Hongzhuang saw a martial out-of-the-ordinary figure clad in red. Bei Chen sat on a horse and had donned a matching red robe. His bewitchingly handsome face held an enormous smile, exuding happiness like a sun-radiated heat, attracting everyone's attention. In that moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly felt as if a beloved person of hers was getting married and laughed, her laughter permeating with delight. Bei Chen was also shocked as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. He had always thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be very beautiful with her makeup and hair done as a bride. But what he saw today far surpassed his imagination. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang's usual look, it was less pure and elegant but more charming and enchanting, a smile capable of stealing a person's soul. He had never thought about what he wanted his bride to look like. But in that instant, he knew he wanted his bride to look like this. The two pairs of eyes met, sharing a smile worth 1,000 words. Under the sounds of firecrackers and blessings, Bailey Hongzhuang got on the bridal palanquin. She was slowly carried to Chen Imperial Palace. Chen Palace was lively. Many guests had arrived and were all laughing and talking about the wedding. I heard that it was Prince Chen who took the initiative to set the wedding date today. It seems like Prince Chen is really looking forward to marrying Bailey Hongzhuang. Who doesn't look forward to marrying a beautiful woman? Didn't you see that His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, was acting like he lost his soul? Shoo, you can't say that aloud. One man said hastily. After today, Bailey Hongzhuang would become Princess Chen. If you pull back what happened between Xianyuan Huan and Bailey Hongzhuang, today would be the day of your death. The person who said it naturally knew what he said was wrong and laughed hollowly. Do you think the general's household will come today? Bailey Hongzhuang and Prince Chen didn't even put them in their sight. The emperor will be coming soon. Bailey Zhentao wouldn't dare to disobey the emperor's orders, so he'll definitely come. I think Bailey Hongzhuang was taking revenge. We all know very clearly just how the general's household treated her. The guest's face changed. This was the most watched wedding in the imperial city. The former crown prince's wife is marrying Prince Chen to become Princess Chen, while also completely disregarded her paternal family, making the general's household to lose face. Just the thought of this made them all feel that this wedding will be very interesting. For Bailey Hongzhuang to marry from Qinzhuang Garden, many people thought that Bailey Zhentao just got what he deserved. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't cultivate, she was after all, his daughter. It wasn't right for Bailey Zhentao to treat Bailey Hongzhuang so shamefully. Two daughters, yet they were treated so differently. Why wouldn't Bailey Hongzhuang be so cold to the general's household? The firecrackers crackled and everyone's faces revealed anticipation. The bride had arrived. Bei Chen and Bailey Hongzhuang moved together to the front hall, their bright red garments attracted everybody's eyes. Seeing Bei Chen sitting on his wheelchair, everybody's hearts sighed with emotion. A man of such peerless grace and elegance just had to be a cripple. If it wasn't for that, the two would truly be a great match. Just then, a sharp voice sounded, "His Majesty, the Emperor has arrived. His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince has arrived." Everybody turned to bow. The fact that the Emperor himself is personally attending was enough to prove just how important the wedding was. Everybody may rise. Xianyuan Yutian smiled and spoke, "Today is Prince Chen and Princess Chen's joyous day, everyone may relax." Thanks the Emperor. Li Qingqian's mood was currently very good. This wedding today made Bailey Zhentao lose enough face. The Emperor had already arrived now, but Bailey Zhentao still hasn't come. Once this crime was pinned on you, it wasn't a small deal. But when he rose his head, Li Qingqian's face couldn't help but change. Bailey Zhentao and the rest of the general's household were standing just behind the Emperor and Crown Prince. I didn't expect that General Bailey would actually come with the Emperor. Li Qingqian tested the waters. Xianyuan Yuqian chuckled, just so happened to run into each other outside the palace and decided to come in together. Hearing this, Li Qingqian's face darkened. Bailey Jintao had really good luck. Bailey Jintao also looked at Li Qingqian darkly. After being rivals for so long, he was very clear what kind of things Li Qingqian plotted in his heart. Now that the emperor was here, he wouldn't dare to say a thing. Since everybody is here, let the wedding begin. Xianyuan Yuqian took the initiative and sat down on the highest seat. This was a position meant specially for him. For the emperor to personally come for the wedding, it was an unsurpassed honor for Qin Palace. Now, everyone focused on the figure walking in. Earlier, she had just entered when the courier announced the arrival of the emperor. Everybody was focused on the emperor, and almost nobody took any notice of the bride's appearance. With one look, a stunned light emerged in everybody's eyes. Before, everybody had some understanding about Bailey Hongzhuang's looks, but now, they could only feel like the rumors were too modest. Was Bailey Hongzhuang just attractive? No, she was an absolutely stunningly beautiful woman. Her looks were peerless in the world. Dibei Chen was known as the imperial city's most handsome man by the public. Any woman, no matter how beautiful, would only lose their light when standing next to him. But now as Bailey Hongzhuang stood next to him, everybody could only sigh emotionally. They were simply a match made in heaven. Wow! This Princess Chen is truly beautiful. We didn't see her for a few days, and she seemed to have grown even more gorgeous. Who was it that said the most beautiful woman in the imperial city was Li Yuyue? In my opinion, Princess Chen is the real most beautiful woman in the imperial city. Right, if I could marry such a beautiful woman, I'd be willing to give away 10 years of my life. Everybody praised generously. Many of the people in the crowd were actually Bailey Hongzhuang's patients. Furthermore, many of their younger generation was preparing for the hunting feast. The cultivation pills that Godly Dr. Square sold helped them a lot. Therefore, they were all very grateful to Bailey Hongzhuang. If it wasn't for her, how could so many of their problems be solved so easily? Xianyuan Huan stared at the perfect, delicate face in front of him. He had known Bailey Hongzhuang for 10 years, but never ever had he truly looked at her. In his heart, Bailey Hongzhuang was always trash that wasn't at all worthy of his status and whose appearance that couldn't even begin to be compared to Bailey Yuyan. And now, looking at her face that was glowing with good health, it was Bailey Yuyan who simply couldn't begin to be compared with her. Such beauty should have been loyally following him. It was him that should be in the groom's position right now, but now, it had nothing to do with him. The thought of Bailey Hongzhuang becoming Dibei Chen's made his chest feel unspeakably tight, his heart full of regret. The minute Bailey Yuyan entered Qin Palace, her eyes were always on Xianyuan Huan. Now as she watched Xianyuan Huan stare fixatedly at Bailey Hongzhuang, her heart had a burst of irritation. She turned her eyes to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. She wants to see just how beautiful Bailey Hongzhuang's red wedding dress was to steal Xianyuan Huan's soul. With just a glance, Bailey Yuyan's face turned extremely ugly, her heart crazed with jealousy. How could this woman become so beautiful in such a short amount of time? Sensing Bailey Yuyan's envious stare, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly turned her head to look at her. The eyes met, sparks flying in the air. Bailey Hongzhuang's exquisite, beautiful face formed an enchanting smile as she looked at Bailey Yuyan disdainfully. The present Bailey Yuyan had nothing to do for her. Even looking at her was a waste of time. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, Bailey Yuyan was so angry that her face turned red. Bailey Hongzhuang was really too hateful. First, pay respects to the emperor. Dibei Chen and Bailey Hongzhuang obediently paid respects to the emperor. But nobody could see the disdain and unwillingness present in Dibei Chen's eyes. Luckily, he didn't want to cause any drama and restrained himself. Xianyuan Yutian calmed down and smiled, accepting Beili Hongzhuang and Dibei Chen's bow. Second, bow to heaven and earth. Hearing the shout, Beili Jintao's face stiffened. Since the emperor was here, they must first pay respects to the emperor. But then second, you must pay respects to the parents. Dibei Chen and Beili Hongzhuang actually directly proceeded to bow to heaven and earth. Wasn't this just completely ignoring them? Dibei Chen and Beili Hongzhuang bowed to heaven and earth. Husband and wife bow to each other. Everybody looked at each other blankly. It looks like the relationship between Beili Hongzhuang and the general's household has truly become completely unfixable. Marrying not from the general's household but somewhere else, and now even completely ignoring Beili Jintao under the glare of the public eye, this was truly leaving them no face. Beili Jintao's face was livid, his fists clenching tightly under his robes, the blue vein protruding on his forehead clearly showing the fury he felt inside. This unfilial daughter. Daring to not give him any face in front of everyone. The light in Xianyuan Yutian's eyes sunk. Dibei Chen and Beili Hongzhuang were going too far. Isn't the second step bowing to the parents? What do you mean by this? Xianyuan Yutian slowly opened his mouth and spoke, his behavior aggressive to Dibei Chen and Beili Hongzhuang. The hall was in silence as everyone's eyes focused on Dibei Chen and Beili Hongzhuang. Now that the emperor won't stand for it, what will they do? Beili Yuyan's face looked like she was watching a play. This time, she wants to see how Beili Hongzhuang will continue acting so arrogant. However, Beili Hongzhuang's voice was calm and unhurried as she spoke, replying to the emperor. The truth is, a few days ago, General Beili has already chosen to cut off all family ties. If not so, I wouldn't be marrying from a place elsewhere of the general's household today. In fact, she didn't even know that Dibei Chen would handle this matter so thoroughly, even going as far as to ignore the second step, bowing to the parents. But this was perfect for her. Taking advantage of this opportunity today, she can finally put an end to all and any relationships with the general's household. She doesn't need such a gang as family. By breaking off all ties, she can also free herself from a lot of worries. At the very least from then on, the general's household will no longer be qualified to find trouble with her. Beili Hongzhuang's words fell. Beili Jintao's face changed, and the crowd was stunned as they watched. Everybody knew that Beili Hongzhuang and the general's household were in conflict with each other for a long time, but they didn't expect for Beili Hongzhuang and Beili Jintao to even cut off all father-daughter ties. If it was like this, Beili Hongzhuang held no fault at all. Since she no longer had any relationship with Beili Jintao, then, of course, she'd be marrying from Qinzhuang Garden. How could she possibly still marry from the general's household? Beili Jintao looked at Beili Hongzhuang angrily. He couldn't believe this girl actually dared to speak about this to the emperor. Beili Yuyan's face, who was watching Beili Hongzhuang like a play, had long been changed to worry. Beili Hongzhuang sure was ruthless, directly forcing the general's household into an unjust situation. Although everybody silently ridiculed the general's household situation today, nobody thought that they did anything wrong. But now that Beili Hongzhuang opened her mouth, everything became the general's household's fault while she was free of any mistakes. Xianyuan Yutian never expected to receive such a reply, his gaze landing on Beili Jintao's body. General Beili, is what Princess Chen said true? Beili Jintao's face was embarrassed, and for that moment, he couldn't make up an answer. Seeing Beili Jintao's reaction, Xianyuan Yutian easily understood the situation. So what Beili Hongzhuang had said was true. On that day, this prince personally saw his future princess being forcefully kicked out of her home by the general's household, so this prince gave her Qinzhuang Garden as a betrothal gift. Dibei Chen suddenly raised his voice, his tone a little disdainful. General Beili, are you saying you aren't satisfied with this prince as a son-in-law? In her mind, Beili Hongzhuang was laughing wildly. Bei Chen's ability to twist the truth and turn black into white was in no way lesser than her own. Pushing the blame on the victim, yet not forgetting to wash his hands clean of any responsibility. Hearing his words, everyone was in an uproar. Now, they could completely understand why Bei Chen had directly ignored the general's household whilst conducting the wedding ceremony. If the general's household wasn't satisfied with him, then why must he go and cast his own misfortune? Xianyuan Yuqian's eyes flashed with displeasure. If Beili Jintao wasn't satisfied with Bei Chen, then doesn't that mean he also wasn't satisfied with him for bestowing the marriage? Beili Jintao looked at Bei Chen. They've clearly never interacted before, but his words clearly revealed his dissatisfaction. Beili Jintao added this on Beili Hongzhuang's tab. If it wasn't for Beili Hongzhuang telling Bei Chen, then how would Bei Chen have such a misunderstanding with him? Emperor, this official was only unhappy and said those words in a moment of anger. By no means was I unsatisfied with the marriage. Beili Jintao hastily argued back. It really wouldn't be good if the emperor formed a bad opinion of him because of this. Although Beili Jintao quickly clarified himself, the emperor's face was still stiff as he turned and waved his hand, "Continue the wedding." Everybody looked at each other in dismay. It looks like a rift had been created between the emperor and General Beili. The ritual finished, and Beili Hongzhuang arrived at the wedding room with the help of a nanny. The nanny left after saying some things, leaving Beili Hongzhuang in the room alone. Beili Hongzhuang relaxed. Getting married was truly too exhausting. In comparison, Bei Chen had to entertain the guests outside and must be even more tired. Master, that Beili Jintao is definitely out of luck this time. Little Black said with a laugh. Just a look at that old codger made his mood turn bad. Now watching Beili Jintao dumbfounded, speechless, he was very happy. At the very least, because of this, the emperor is very dissatisfied with Beili Jintao. Probably now, Beili Jintao will have to behave with his tail tucked under his legs. Little White's eyes curved into crescents. She was always worried whenever she watched Beili Jintao rage at Beili Hongzhuang. Now, it was time for revenge. From now on, we won't have to see that old codger's disgusting face. Little Black and Little White's tiny faces were full of glee. Although the marriage was no more than a farce, now Beili Jintao doesn't have any qualifications to speak to Beili Hongzhuang. Now, their ears can finally be clean. Beili Hongzhuang revealed a faint smile. Beili Jintao and the rest of the general's household must be on tenterhooks right now. Even though she knew that she wasn't Beili Jintao's daughter, she still wanted justice for the previous dead Beili Hongzhuang. Master, so much yummy food on the table. Little Black's eyes stared at the food and wine. Since he came in, he was always attracted by the fragrance. Beili Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Today, her mood was quite good as she waved her hands, "Eat." Taking care of the guests won't take a short time, so she might as well fill her stomach. The moon rose on the tip of a willow branch, the night like water. When Bei Chen opened the door and saw the mess on the table, a smile appeared on his face. He didn't feel anything strange about the scene. After all, the woman he married was in whichever way, completely different from an ordinary woman. This was Beili Hongzhuang's charm. "Wifey, I'm here." Bei Chen slowly went in front of Beili Hongzhuang, a smile on his face. Bei Chen seemed to have drank a large amount of liquor, his bewitchingly handsome face flushed like he was drunk. It was very different from the day. Seeing how Bei Chen could still remember to act crippled even when drunk, Beili Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with admiration. This man really wasn't simple. "It was hard on you." Beili Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow, speaking casually. Bei Chen frowned, "Is this the only thing wifey wants to say to me? What else?" Bei Chen smiled ambiguously, turning to pour 2 cups of wine in front of Beili Hongzhuang. He handed her one of the 2 cups. May we live happily together until our hair grows white from old age. Bailey Hongzhuang was startled. Looking at the faint smile on Bei Chen's face, she had no clue if he actually serious or just joking. This marriage is nothing but a mutual cooperation with each other, you can't be too serious about it. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Wifey spoiling the fun. Bei Chen pretended to be unhappy. On the wedding night, you should still say something. Bailey Hongzhuang was too lazy to dispute Bei Chen's nonsense. Right now, that guy couldn't even distinguish between what was true and what was false. She clinked her glass to his, happy cooperation. Bei Chen's smile brightened and he raised his cup, draining the wine in one shot. With a beauty accompanying me, this wine becomes much more rich. Bailey Zhentao already left. Bailey Hongzhuang asked calmly, her voice unhurried. You left him no face in front of everybody, how could he continue to stay here? Bei Chen asked back, he made an excuse saying he didn't feel well and left. TSK, now I'm afraid he completely hates me. Saying this, Bei Chen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang innocently, his eyes clear and bright. Wifey, you must comfort my wounded heart. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled quietly, you were the one who provoked him first. Even she didn't expect for Bei Chen to go so far to skip the wedding bow, not giving Bailey Zhentao the slightest bit of face before using words to force him into an awkward situation. Wifey, you can't say things like that. I did it for you. Listening, Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. But inside, her heart was touched. Bei Chen did this accounting for her emotions. No matter what, doing so in front of the emperor, it was a very heavy risk for him. He knew this, but he still chose to do such a thing. That was enough to explain everything. After a long time, Bailey Hongzhuang quietly spoke, thank you. She was very clear that even if the emperor was personally attending, there was no way she could bring herself to bow to Bailey Zhentao. With that, the situation would have become even more difficult to end. His deep, ocean-like pupils flashed with a ray of light as a dubious smile suddenly bloomed on Bei Chen's face. Wifey, now you're my princess. Why speak so formally? This long-awaited spring night is bitterly short, and talking will only waste time. Won't it be better to do something more meaningful? By the time he finished, Bei Chen's tone was extremely ambiguous. Bailey Hongzhuang's face reddened. On a wedding night, she naturally understood what husband and wife were supposed to do. Yes, the night is deep, it's time to sleep. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Bei Chen's eyes flashed. He was looking forward to Bailey Hongzhuang, but instead, she just went and prepared to sleep on the bed. Wifey's words are right, the night is good, truly good for sleeping. Deliberately saying the word good twice, Bei Chen's mouth was blooming with flowers. But the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang threw 2 blankets at Bei Chen, the smile on her mouth elegant and charming. Since you're having a hard time, sleep on the ground and have a good rest. Finishing her words, she directly turned and laid on the bed, using her actions to prove her point. Watching Bailey Hongzhuang, a helpless smile appeared on Bei Chen's face as he looked at the 2 blankets in his hands. But even so, a spoiling, loving light appeared in his eyes. Seeing how Bei Chen didn't do anything but lie on the ground and sleep, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Even with having lived 2 lifetimes, she still had no experience. Lying on the soft bed, it took a long time for Bailey Hongzhuang to fall asleep. Maybe it was because she'd had never slept on such a soft bed in elegant Daylily Pavilion, it took her a while to adjust. Or maybe, it was because there was never a man breathing in the room as she slept. Wifey, is the candle too bright for you to sleep? Bei Chen asked, concerned as he suddenly got up from the floor. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be surprised and immediately pointed, "The red candle's too bright, I'm not used to it." Her heart couldn't help but feel a little guilty. In fact, she couldn't sleep because of Bei Chen. The room turned dark as Bei Chen blew out the candle. "Now wifey can rest well." "Thank you." Bailey Hongzhuang replied, and the room fell into silence. "Oh well, she just won't sleep tonight and have a good rest tomorrow." Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang heard light footsteps coming from outside the door. Although the footsteps were actually very quiet, as a cultivator, her hearing was far above an ordinary person's and almost immediately discovered them. "It's so late, who would be sneaking around outside their door?" Just when Bailey Hongzhuang was about to get up to see who was being so sneaky, her body was suddenly pinned down by a large silhouette. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help and scream, but Bei Chen covered her mouth, not allowing a single sound to leak through. Bei Chen leaned close to her ear, his voice low as he whispered, "The walls have ears, someone may be listening." Hearing his voice, Bailey Hongzhuang's tense body relaxed a little as she started to think. Only the emperor could have sent these people. Although she still wasn't clear what Bei Chen's identity was, she knew that the emperor was very wary of him. As for the rumor about him being an illegitimate child, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't believe it at all after learning his true strength. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bei Chen and gestured for him to get down. Just how much longer does this guy want to lie on her body? Although Bei Chen wasn't very heavy, this face-to-face posture, it was just too ambiguous. "Wife, you're so beautiful." Bei Chen's voice was low and hoarse, his eyes staring at this woman whose beauty could overturn entire cities, and a strange feeling spread in his heart. Moonlight peeked through the window, spilling in the room. It was just barely enough to see the other's face, beautiful and hazy, making the atmosphere even more intoxicating. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled. This was the first time she saw Bei Chen's face up close. She could clearly feel his breath on her skin, burning hot yet somewhat itchy. She couldn't help but want to shrink her neck away. The pair of bewitching, deep eyes were glowing with a dazzling light. Even the starry sky was lost to his sparkling eyes. The two stared at one another. In that moment, they almost forgot about the people standing outside the door. In their eyes, there were only each other. The room was extremely quiet. Bailey Hongzhuang could clearly hear her own heartbeat hammering in her chest, thump, thump, interrupting her usual calmness. "In my opinion, Prince Chen definitely won't have a problem." Princess Bailey is such a rare beauty, who would deliberately choose to miss the opportunity? But, why isn't there any sound? Outside the room, they were putting their ears on the door, listening for any movement inside the room. Although they weren't sure why they were given such a job, since the higher-ups told them to do so, they could only do it. Bei Chen rapped his knuckles on the headboard and moved a little. Hearing the sounds, understanding smiles appeared on the two faces outside. It looks like they can report back with accomplishments. As the two's footsteps walked away, Bailey Hongzhuang was relieved. The two were finally dealt with. "You can get down now." Bei Chen looked at her with a smile. "Wifey, you're blushing." Even in the room's dim lighting, he could still see Bailey Hongzhuang's reddened cheeks. Love and affection suddenly filled his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang felt her body turn stiff as his hot breath fanned her face. Her voice was hard. "You want a lot." "Oh," Bei Chen raised an eyebrow, deliberately dragging his voice. Originally this was, "You hurry up and get off." Bailey Hongzhuang was ashamed into anger. At first, she wanted to directly kick this guy off the bed, but then she feared it'd be too loud and the two people outside would hear. And second, because this guy's strength was so big, she couldn't even push him. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance, the smile in Bei Chen's eyes deepened. Usually, Bailey Hongzhuang always looked calm and indifferent. It was the first time he saw other emotions in her eyes, and although it was anger, he still felt it was very cute. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes turned shocked as Bei Chen's handsome face slowly approached her. She immediately pushed against him, but his body was like an unmoving hill. This guy was viewing her as a joke. Just as Bei Chen's face was about to touch Bailey Hongzhuang's lips, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly jerked her head to the side. His warm breath blew on the nape of her neck as he raised his head to whisper words that made her ears turn red. "Wifey, you're really cute." Bei Chen's words were spoken with sincerity. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly so cute that others just couldn't resist. "If you don't get down, I'll give you a taste of life worse than death." Bailey Hongzhuang grinded her teeth. This guy dared to tease her so much. She had to let him see her power. Bei Chen's face changed slightly. He could clearly feel Bailey Hongzhuang bending her knees. His little wife can really be ruthless. Suddenly, Bei Chen's lips hooked up into a bewitching smile. He tightly hugged her and reversed their positions. Now, Bailey Hongzhuang laid on his body. "Wifey, you're too cruel." Bailey Hongzhuang was also stunned for a moment, being hugged tightly by Bei Chen. Both her hands rushed at Bei Chen. This man was just too hateful. Seeing how Bailey Hongzhuang was truly unhappy, Bei Chen caught her hands and smiled quietly. "Okay, I'll stop teasing you." Saying so, Bei Chen released his hands, allowing Bailey Hongzhuang to leave his arms. Looking at Bei Chen's appearance after taking advantage of her, Bailey Hongzhuang snorted coldly. She won't care about this guy any longer. But in her heart, she was actually sulking. If she had more time to cultivate, then she never wouldn't have been suppressed by this guy. When they had fought with each other, the jade pendant also fell with the outer robe of her dress. When Bei Chen saw the jade, the light in his eyes sharpened. "Wife, where did you get the jade pendant from?" Listening to Bei Chen's almost shocked voice, a light flashed in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Bei Chen's tone clearly revealed that he knew something about the jade pendant. Since Bailey Hongzhuang found this, the only proof of her identity, she had always been carrying it around on her body. She could only hope that she could find her biological parents sometime in the future. Just the jade pendant couldn't really mean anything. In her view, trying to find her parents with the jade pendant alone was just too difficult. She never thought that there was someone by her side that actually knew about it. "You know what this jade pendant is?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Bei Chen stared deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang and spoke, "That jade pendant is a family token. Before, I had just so happened to have accidentally seen a similar pendant in Fengbo country." "A family token?" Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. "From which family?" "The Lan family." Bei Chen's words were blunt. As long as somebody was on at least his level, they would all know that this jade pendant belonged to the Lan family. But the strange thing was, why is this jade pendant with Bailey Hongzhuang? Since it was a family token, it was very precious. Furthermore, the jade pendant was something only directly related descendants of the Lan family could have. It'd be extremely strange for it to have fallen into the hands of an outsider. The Lan family? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow. Fengbo country doesn't have a Lan family. I never said that the Lan family was in Fengbo country. Rather, it's an aristocratic family famous for being on the apex of cultivation, the Lan family. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart couldn't help but be shocked. As the family head in her past life, she knew very clearly just how powerful of a background it was to be most prestigious aristocratic cultivation family on the continent. According to reason, a direct descendant of such a family usually wouldn't go to such a small, unknown country like Fengbo. Moreover, her parents were being chased, making the possibility of them coming willingly, almost zero. Watching Bailey Hongzhuang lower her head and think deeply, Bei Chen's deep, ocean-like eyes flashed with intelligence. The fact that Bailey Hongzhuang possessed the jade pendant alone was enough to prove her connection with the Lan family. Otherwise, how could she even have the chance to hang it around her neck? "Wife, do you have a relationship with the Lan family?" Di Beichen slowly asked, his handsome face unusually serious. Bailey Hongzhuang lifted her head. The moonlight was dim, specks of light falling on Di Beichen's elegant and perfect face, letting her clearly see his appearance. After a long while, Bailey Hongzhuang spoke aloud. "Can I trust you?" Di Beichen's eyes changed as his lips formed a quiet smile. "You and I are husband and wife now. Of course you can trust me." Seeing how Di Beichen was still speaking so flippantly, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't bother to talk to him again, turning around to leave. Di Beichen caught her hand and suddenly pulled, reversing their positions so she was under him. It was just like before, but this time, he was even closer to her. "I was saying the truth." Di Beichen stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes gentle. "You have to believe, no matter what, I won't ever do anything to hurt you." The words were spoken by Di Beichen like an oath, firm and devoted. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes slowly changed. In that moment, she saw Di Beichen's true dedication. The reason she asked this question was because although she and Di Beichen's relationship was a bit messy, she still believed that he wouldn't harm her. Sometimes, there doesn't need to be any reason to have a heart-to-heart. If two people believe each other to be able to get along, then it counts as having gotten along. Whatever you want to say or ask, you can just talk frankly. Di Beichen smiled, "I won't tell anyone." A gentle smile blossomed on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. "Actually, I'm not a daughter of the Bailey family." Hearing her words, Di Beichen's eyes that were usually still and tranquil like a lake suddenly became turbulent, the waves similar to a stormy sea. This was a possibility he hadn't ever thought of before. Earlier, he had already sent some people to search Bailey Hongzhuang's background, but still hadn't ever heard anything about this. He was very clear of his own abilities. If he still couldn't find out, then that's just how deeply guarded of a secret that was. Chapter 100 I found out when I left the general's household through my mother's diary. As for the jade pendant, my biological mother hung it on my neck before she left me. If you hadn't known about this jade pendant, I still never would have known what it represented. A Lan family daughter. That was the first thing Di Beichen's mind came to. But after thinking about it, he knew that it was impossible. He was very clear what kind of a monster the Lan family was. How could the powerful Lan family let a child be dropped outside? "How did the general's household wife take you?" Di Beichen asked again. Bailey Hongzhuang explained, clearly telling him everything she knew from her mother's diary. She also wanted to know more about her own life. "Your whole body was covered in blood." Di Beichen's handsome face frowned. The Lan family has always been strong. Even in the entire Xingxue continent, there were very few powers that could contend with them. It was impossible for a daughter of the Lan family to be reduced to such a state. But if not so, how could a Lan family jade token be on Bailey Hongzhuang's body? Suddenly, Di Beichen's eyes flashed, suddenly recalling something. "Wife, was it true that you couldn't cultivate?" Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, "Yes." "So, what was the reason why you couldn't cultivate?" While everyone knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had a trash physique and couldn't cultivate, nobody knew if she was trash because of her body's constitution, if the meridians were damaged, or some other problem or not. Bailey Hongzhuang inspected Di Beichen, sensing he knew something. Otherwise, he wouldn't suddenly be asking her this. "My dantian was broken." Bailey Hongzhuang replied truthfully. When she had first found out, she had thought it was very strange. In this world, people usually became trash because there was a problem with their body's constitution or the meridians were blocked. A dantian could only be broken if the body was seriously injured. At that time, she was very young. It should have been almost impossible for someone to deal such a ruthless hand to her. Finally, hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's reply, Di Bei Chen's face suddenly changed, his normally calm face revealing shock. What does my broken dantian have to do with my history? The light in Di Bei Chen's eyes sunk, slowly saying, I remember many years ago, the Lan family created a big stir. The most favored son of the Lan family head had betrayed the family, killing many of the family's members before leaving with his wife and daughter. Bailey Hongzhuang was startled. If such a thing really did happen in the Lan family, then could it be that? It impacted the Lan family greatly. Lan Yunxiao was the most promising candidate to become family head, so nobody could understand why he would suddenly turn his back on the Lan family. This was a secret the Lan family had deliberately kept hidden from the world, so many people only knew of the results, and not what actually had happened. You mean I could be that Lan Yunxiao's daughter? Bailey Hongzhuang asked aloud. Di Bei Chen pondered. It's not impossible. Your jade pendant is a Lan family token, something that only direct descendants of the Lan family possess. It's impossible for it to fall into the hands of outsiders. My parents seemed like they were fleeing from something and was forced to leave me with the general's household. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Was it the Lan family that killed my parents? Dantian, a place 2 points below the navel where Qi resides. Chapter 101. At that time, I was very young, so although I've heard about it, I had never really cared about it. That's why I don't really know much of the details. Di Bei Chen sighed slightly. I'll send some people to search for news about what happened. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded a little, not refusing Di Bei Chen's help. Thank you. Right now, she didn't have enough strength to even touch that level. If Di Bei Chen helped, then she could learn a lot more. But Di Bei Chen's heart was actually very heavy. If that was really Bailey Hongzhuang's identity, then wouldn't she become the entire Lan family's enemy? Although he and Bailey Hongzhuang haven't known each other for long, he was very clear about her temper. Once Bailey Hongzhuang confirms the face, she'll definitely choose to take revenge. By that time, he could only fear something tragic waiting to happen. The night passed without any more words. Bailey Hongzhuang was immersed in the information about the Lan family's jade pendant. Although she wasn't completely certain about the news, after hearing what happened in the Lan family, there was a small premonition in her heart. This was her origins. She believed that Lan Yunxiao would never turn his back on the Lan family for no reason whatsoever. Something must have happened that he couldn't bear patiently, making him choose to take his wife and daughter to leave the Lan family. Originally, she had thought that her parents were ordinary people. Even if they were being chased, there was still a chance of survival if they were lucky. Now she knew her parents were being chased by the Lan family. With how powerful the Lan family was, once they went all out, the possibility of them living is close to none. Even though she wasn't clear what happened so long ago, she could clearly imagine just how tragic it was. Di Bei Chen also had a sleepless night. The shock of finding Bailey Hongzhuang's undeniable identity was simply too great. The surprise he had gotten when she told him he wasn't Bailey Jintao's biological daughter was nothing compared to the shock he felt from her actually being a Lan family daughter. The reason couldn't be simple. They got up early the next morning. Today, they needed to enter the royal palace to thank the emperor and empress's grace. Meanwhile, news about Prince Chen's marriage was circulated in the streets, and Bailey Jintao's bout of anger made everyone sigh with emotion. So it was General Bailey who chose to cut off all father-daughter ties to Princess Chen first. No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang had married from Qinzhuang Garden. I'm afraid that General Bailey's intestines are probably turning green from regret right now. He probably never thought that Princess Chen would be so amazing. In comparison, Bailey Yuyan simply can't even be compared to Princess Chen. What outstanding cultivational talent. She's just running a scam. The general's household became the juiciest gossip in the imperial city. From the start, many people were concerned for Bailey Hongzhuang's existence in the general's household. Now that the Bailey Hongzhuang so powerful, the general's household naturally became the center of attention. I heard my young master say that Princess Chen's beauty was fully worthy of being the most beautiful woman in the imperial city. When Prince Chen was married yesterday, my family's young master got to attend the ceremony. Right, I also heard that Princess Chen was actually even more beautiful than the Prime Minister's daughter, Li Yuyue. It's reasonable to call Princess Chen the most beautiful woman in the imperial city. By the time Bailey Hongzhuang returned from the royal palace, the title of Most Beautiful Lady of the Imperial City was already pinned to her body. But Bailey Hongzhuang only wanted to sleep. I'll return to my room to rest. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't get a wink of sleep with Dibei Chen. From yesterday until now, she was more tired than she'd be after fighting a troop of people. Wifey, I also want to go back to the room and rest. Dibei Chen smiled brilliantly. Chapter 102 Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and smiled, the room next door, please. Wifey, this is the room where we sleep together. Dibei Chen's eyes were limpid as he stared at Bailey Hongzhuang eagerly. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow, then. Should I go sleep in the other room? Last night, she was played like a joke by this guy. She won't ever let something like that happen again. Never mind, it's better I go to the other room. Dibei Chen reluctantly let go, releasing his grip on the doorknob. Creak. Bailey Hongzhuang locked the door without hesitation. Her whole body was relaxed, nevertheless, returning to her room was still the best. Dibei Chen looked at the door with a smile before turning and entering the room beside it. If Bailey Hongzhuang was there, she would see that the furnishings in the two rooms were nearly identical. Even before she married, Dibei Chen already had everything ready. Seeing Dibei Chen clap his hands, He Mu immediately appeared in the room and bowed. Lord! Send someone to help me check out what happened with the Lan family's Lan Yunxiao. Make sure to be discreet, don't let anyone know. Dibei Chen's voice was low, his handsome face revealing not the slightest bit of emotion. He Mu's face was doubtful when he heard Dibei Chen's words. They didn't have any connection with the Lan family, so why would his little lord suddenly think of investigating what happened with the Lan family? But after following him for so long, with just a glance at his little lord's face, he was very clearly that his little lord was very serious. He immediately went to action, not daring to tarry. I'll start now. After He Mu left, Dibei Chen's pupils shone with deep light. If this was all true, then, how will Bailey Hongzhuang act? The Lan family was a great power Bailey Hongzhuang just couldn't even begin to compete with. His heart couldn't help but worry about her. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't rest and directly started to cultivate. At first, because the royal hunting feast was very soon, she wanted to increase her strength as much as possible, becoming an overnight hero, a dark horse. But since learning about the Lan family yesterday, her will to cultivate only intensified. In front of the Lan family, and such monsters, without enough strength, she didn't even have the right to speak. Since she's living a second life, she absolutely will not allow herself to leave any regrets. For everything, she needed strength. After 3 days, Bailey Hongzhuang prepared to go to Godly Doctor Square. Because of the marriage, she didn't go to Godly Doctor Square for 3 whole days. Now, it was time for her to return. But just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to leave, Dibei Chen's voice rang out behind her. Is wifey going to Godly Doctor Square? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to see Dibei Chen sitting in his wheelchair outside the house, a faint smile currently on his face as he looked at her. Right. Dibei Chen came to Bailey Hongzhuang's side, smiling quietly. Wifey, the weather's good today. Shall we go for a walk together? Hearing his words, Bailey Hongzhuang frowned, confused. Knowing Dibei Chen's personality, he wouldn't be the type to like window shopping. Why would he suddenly ask her to go on a walk? In any case, wifey is now Princess Chen. Usually, the clothes you wear are always very simple and neat, so it'd be better to buy some new ones. Even if you don't want to wear it every day, just at least wear it when we visit the royal palace. What do you think? Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. No matter what, she was now one of Prince Chen's people and represented his honor. For Prince Chen's face, it indeed wouldn't be appropriate for her to attend any gatherings with such plain clothing. Okay. Bailey Hongzhuang agreed. Princess Chen is truly worthy of being the #1 beauty of the imperial city. Each and every move is just simply beautiful to the extreme. Dibei Chen smiled as he listened to everyone talk, a long, slanted eyebrow raising, #1 beauty of the imperial city? Prince probably doesn't know, but right now, everyone calls Princess Chen the #1 beauty of the imperial city. He Mu's face revealed pride as he reported, before, the title as the #1 beauty of the imperial city used to linger between Bailey Yuyan and Li Yuyue, but since Princess showed her face, this title fell on her head undisputed. Bailey Hongzhuang had also heard about this when she was chatting with Dong Sairu, but hadn't actually thought it was a real title that actually fell on her body. Those people were just too bored. Dibei Chen looked at the calm Bailey Hongzhuang standing at his side. Broken fragments of gold-like sunlight were sprinkled on her body, covering her in a golden luster. Even without the use of makeup, her face was just as clear and attractive. Each and every move contained a certain elegance, a unique grace to it. The #1 beauty of the imperial city. Not just in name only, but also in reality. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled, gazing at Dibei Chen to see the warm smile on his face. His praise was completely sincere. Will being the #1 beauty of the imperial city give you food to eat? It's only good to listen to. Bailey Hongzhuang spoke indifferently. She didn't care one bit for such a title with only false reputation. Nikhang Market was a top-notch clothing store in the imperial city. Whether it was a merchant's miss or official's miss, they all loved to come here and buy clothing. Even though the prices were far from ordinary clothing stores, its business was still exceptionally rich. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei Chen arrived at Nikhang Market, the whole store seemed to turn quiet for an instant. They didn't expect for the winds to blow straight, letting Prince and Princess Chen visit their shop today. This time, the emperor went in person to the prince's palace, signifying that Prince Chen's position rose somewhat. At the very least, it meant that Prince Chen still held a certain place in the emperor's heart, or he never even would have bothered to attend the wedding. Even though usually Dibei Chen was often bullied, that was only by the crown prince. Only princes in this generation dared to do so, other people wouldn't even dare. Nikhang Market's lady proprietress, Wei Nikhang, immediately came over and welcomed them. Prince Chen, Princess Chen, it's an honor to be in your presence. It seems like Prince Chen must have come to buy Princess Chen some garments. This was Wei Nichang's first time meeting Prince and Princess Chen. Although Prince Chen was sitting in a wheelchair, his back was perfectly straight, and you couldn't see the slightest bit of depression. His handsome appearance naturally needed no words, his character exuding a certain grace that would make one gasp in admiration. She felt that the way this Prince Chen was completely different from Prince Chen that was always getting bullied in the rumors. The aura he emitted and the mannerisms he displayed could be in no way compared to regular people. Only, it was truly a shame that he was crippled. Dibei Chen smiled faintly, right. Wifey, do you see any clothes you like? Dibei Chen's voice was gentle, gazing at Bailey Hongzhuang's face like his beloved treasure. Lady proprietress must be very busy with her own things, we can just look around on our own. Hearing his words, Wei Nikhang bowed, well, if Prince or Princess requires my aid, feel free to give me a shout anytime. The peace in Nikhang Market was restored. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the store filled with clothes. Whether it was material or workmanship, they were all first class. With such quality, it was no surprise that Nikhang market was so popular. Chapter 104. At this time, a figure sudden appeared in Nikhang market. It was the Prime Minister's daughter, the current Crown Princess, Li Yuyue. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang also in Nikhang market, Li Yuyue's eyes couldn't help but stiffen. Her face revealed traces of disgust. Bailey Hongzhuang picked through the clothes. Although her favorite color was a plain and simple white, since she became Princess Chen, in the future, she'll have to go to the palace often. If she was dressed completely in white every time she visited, it wouldn't be quite appropriate, so she had to choose a few other colors. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes sharpened, landing on a white dress. The dress was as white as snow, embellished with designs of blooming peach flowers. It wasn't overly fancy or complicated, but instead felt bright and fresh. Thinking about the peach blossoms in Qinzhuang Garden, a trace of a smile spread on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. This was the dress she liked most. A slender arm fell on the dress just as Bailey Hongzhuang picked it up. Lifting her head, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the woman, confused only to see Li Yuyue's face, looking at her disdainfully. "This dress, I want it." Opening her mouth, Li Yuyue's voice was domineering, not allowing Bailey Hongzhuang to speak a single word. An utterly enchanting smile formed from the corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips. "Miss Li, the dress seemed to be in this princess's hands first, and is thus mine." Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang dare to refute her, Li Yuyue's complexion ashened. "I said I wanted this dress, so it's mine." "I never knew Miss Li was actually so overbearing." Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was still clear and gentle. "Only, your overbearing attitude means nothing to me." Her right hand slightly forceful, Bailey Hongzhuang directly pulled the dress into her arms. This woman was just too arrogant, choosing her target. She, Bailey Hongzhuang, was never one easy to be bullied. "Bailey Hongzhuang." Li Yuyue raised her voice. "I am the majestic crown princess, daring to offend me, do you want to die?" "Ha!" Bailey Hongzhuang laughed softly, but the light in her eyes began to grow cold. "Miss Li, you still haven't married the crown prince. Right now, you're only the future crown princess, aren't you just anxious to get married? It's still better for Miss to rely on her family." Bailey Hongzhuang played it down as she looked at Li Yuyue, the meaning in her words clear. Li Yuyue was startled and didn't expect for Bailey Hongzhuang to actually say such a thing, that she and the crown prince still hadn't married, making her only the future crown princess. By just looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's haughty appearance, her heart couldn't help but burst with anger. At first, when Bailey Yuyan was disfigured, she became the #1 beauty of the imperial city. But she never expected for Bailey Hongzhuang to appear and steal her title. It was just too hateful. Even if she used to only have hatred with Bailey Yuyan and had no relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang, now she felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was even more hateful than Bailey Yuyan. "In any case, I am the future crown princess while you are no more than a small princess. To dare to challenge me, do you actually still believe His Highness, the crown prince, will look for you to treat him?" TL note, in Chinese, crown princess is Tai Zi Fei, whereas princess is just Wang Fei. It makes the comparison much more obvious. Right now, Li Yuyue could only think about beating down Bailey Hongzhuang. For the past 2 days since her title as the #1 beauty of the imperial city was robbed, she could feel everyone look at her with different eyes, and the highborn women she didn't get along with often came to mock her. Today her mood wasn't very good, so she decided to come to Jichang Market and buy some clothes to improve her spirit. But she didn't expect to meet enemies on a narrow road, the woman who put her in such a bad temper, Bailey Hongzhuang. Princess is changed to Wang Fei. Chapter 105. Taking this opportunity, no matter which method she uses to beat Bailey Hongzhuang, she'll definitely teach her just who is the phoenix and who is the pheasant. Miss Li, you said it yourself, you're only the future crown princess. When you get married, come back and say those words to me again. Bailey Hongzhuang's pace was steady as walked over to the front side, still holding on to the dress. She still wanted to look at the other clothes in Jichang Market. Bailey Hongzhunag, you're going overboard. Li Yuyue shouted, stomping her foot. She really couldn't understand. Bailey Hongzhuang clearly only married a crippled prince, how could she be so arrogant? Everybody thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be unhappy and depressed, but Bailey Hongzhuang was still as proud and arrogant as ever, completely defying everybody's expectations. Miss Li, even if you're happy shouting abuse in the streets like a shrew, I am not the same. Li Yuyue's face turned ugly when she heard her remark. Bailey Hongzhuang actually called her a shrew. The future crown princess, a shrew. Li Yuyue and Bailey Hongzhuang's argument attracted many people's attention. Usually, for people who come to Jichang Market, they all held a certain level of status. When everybody saw Li Yuyue and Bailey Hongzhuang confronting each other, they knew it was going to get interesting. Many of them knew that Li Yuyue had been sulking in Prime Minister's mansion for the past few days when her title of #1 beauty in the imperial city was taken by Bailey Hongzhuang. Now watching Bailey Hongzhuang and Li Yuyue cross swords, their hearts secretly praised Bailey Hongzhuang. Chen Wanfei's mouth was truly sharp, Li Yuyue couldn't even fight back. Especially the tone of her voice and stance. She and Li Yuyue simply couldn't even be compared on the same level. Li Yuyue was clearly the one who took the initiative to look for trouble with Bailey Hongzhuang, but it was Bailey Hongzhuang who was teaching her a lesson. Look, Li Yuyue's face is green. Because when she became the future crown princess, she turned as proud as a peacock. She was just itching to flaunt her marriage with the crown prince. I think it's disgusting. Chen Wanfei is truly unusual. This time, Li Yuyue could be said to have met a brick wall. Everyone in the crowd held the same feeling of watching a play. Normally it was rare to see such amazing drama, and they all were looking forward to seeing how it would play out. Li Yuyue walked up to Bailey Hongzhuang in large strides, her beautiful face cold. Her arrogant air couldn't be hidden. Bailey Hongzhuang, if you won't leave this dress behind today, you'll never leave Jichang Market's doors. So many people were watching in Jichang Market. If today she lost face, how could she show her face to anyone again? Are you threatening this prince's wife? A magnetic, deep voice suddenly sounded, but the tone was cold and gloomy. Li Yuyue couldn't help but be startled, discovering Bei Chen's gaze landing on her body. She didn't expect for Bei Chen to suddenly speak now, and couldn't help but feel somewhat embarrassed. But Li Yuyue quickly recovered her haughty appearance. Right, and if she doesn't apologize to me right here and now, I absolutely will not allow her to leave here tonight. Opening her mouth, Li Yuyue actually dragged Bei Chen in. She was very clear on Bei Chen's status and knew that he only a prince in name. Before, His Highness, the Crown Prince could bully this guy happily, so how could she be afraid of such a fellow? Just a Prime Minister's daughter is actually so arrogant, I never saw someone so lacking in manners. Today, this prince has opened his eyes. Ben Wang, this Prince Wanya prince hearing that, Li Yuyue's face suddenly changed. Who do you think you're talking to? How dare you reproach me? Bei Chen's handsome eyebrows twitched, his lips that had curled up into a grin slowly turned cold. Reproach you? You think you're worthy? Daring to threaten my woman, I'll surely make you regret it. Bei Chen's eyes were cold, his low voice echoing with a cold threat. An imposing aura suddenly erupted from his body. Li Yuyue's whole body shivered with fright as she backed off. Under Bei Chen's terrifying aura, she felt like she couldn't even control her own body. Li Yuyue looked at him with fear. How could she have not known Bei Chen's strength was actually so powerful? Moreover, his unexpected tone of speech, and his domineering attitude simply left one unable to speak back. You. If you dare to injure me. His Highness, the Crown Prince won't let you off. Li Yuyue trembled as she shouted. Looking at his matchless cold eyes, Li Yuyue for the first time, felt fear down to the very bottom of her heart. Whoever dares to threaten Benwang's wife, Benwang also won't let that reckless person off. His words made Li Yuyue's heart turn cold. Di Bei Chen was actually so protective of Bailey Hongzhuang. The crowd surrounding them stared blankly in shock. For a long time Prince Chen had been known for being easy to bully. But no one expected that Prince Chen's anger would actually be so terrible. But most importantly, Prince Chen had actually become an eager wife protector. So the rumors weren't fake, and Prince Chen truly was in love with Bailey Hongzhuang. Whether it was the betrothal gifts or not giving any face to General Bailey on the wedding day, it was all enough to prove Bailey Hongzhuang's position in Di Bei Chen's heart. Li Yuyue had actually bullied Bailey Hongzhuang right in front of his face. Prince Chen was furious. Seeing this desperate situation, Wei Nikhang came running hurriedly. It didn't matter who those two were, but if she didn't intervene now, her entire Nikhang market could crumble down completely. Prince Chen, Miss Li's words were only said in a moment of impulse. You shouldn't let Miss Li's words bother you. Wei Nichang's face was filled with smiles, but her heart was secretly in chaos. Ever since Prince Chen recognized Chen Wangfei as thus, to say the least, his temperament had changed to a certain extent. This Chen Wangfei was truly had some ability. Bailey Hongzhuang also muttered something now. Li Yuyue, if you want to complain, do it after you choose a partner. Bailey Hongzhuang had many ways to send Li Yuyue packing, but it must be carried out in secret. Confronting her directly in public would only lead to a bad outcome. Wang Ye, it's only a waste of energy to be mad at her. Bailey Hongzhuang laughed indifferently. Di Bei Chen's cold face eased a little bit. Since Wang Fei said so, Ben Wang will drop the subject early. If you dare to invite a snub or court a rebuff, Ben Wang will make you regret not treasuring this chance. Watching Di Bei Chen withdrawing his aura, Li Yuyue's whole body fell weakly. Her back was covered in cold sweat. Wang Ye, can you go wait for me outside? I still have a few words to speak of with Miss Li. Bailey Hongzhuang said. Di Bei Chen nodded and He Mu immediately took the white dress Bailey Hongzhuang had in her hands and paid for it before directly walking out of Jichang Square. After waiting for Di Bei Chen to leave, Li Yuyue stared scornfully at Bailey Hongzhuang. I never thought you were so good at seducing men. Not just Di Bei Chen, even His Highness, the Crown Prince was one of Bailey Hongzhuang's admirers. Since the day he had wanted to marry Bailey Hongzhuang in the drafting feast, she had always been a wound in her heart. She thought Bailey Hongzhuang would have been furious, but Bailey Hongzhuang only curled her lips into a smile. Thank you for your praise. Because Jinxiang Trading Company was used all around the entire Xinxue continent, it needs not to be mentioned the astronomical amount of wealth needed to get a black card. But Di Bei Chen actually owned such a card. So Di Bei Chen was never a poor ghost, but was actually very rich. My own money is enough, you can keep the card yourself. Bailey Hongzhuang replied. Di Bei Chen's behavior earlier had given her a misunderstanding. This amount of money was indeed something that could only be shared between husband and wife. Take it, right now it's better for you to focus on cultivating or refining your inner energy. Di Bei Chen said, in my opinion, it might be better for you to temporarily close your godly doctor square to focus wholeheartedly on cultivation, for the better. Why? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Di Bei Chen smiled, wifey, no matter the outcome, right now you're the Chen Wangfei. If you show your face out in public while treating people, it wouldn't be pleasant to hear. You care about that? Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. Because of Di Bei Chen's nature, it was simply unlikely for him to care about such things. Chapter 108 Never mind. Bei Chen shook his head. It's just that it's almost time for the royal family's hunting feast. If you can get a good ranking in the hunting competition, it'd be very advantageous for you. Hearing Bei Chen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang instantly understood his plan and immediately nodded. Then I'll close Godly Doctor Square for now. If her guess was right, then Bei Chen probably also thinks that it's rather likely for her to be Lan Yinxiao's daughter. If she wanted to face the entire Lan family, there was no time to waste on running Godly Doctor Square. Bailey Hongzhuang temporarily closed Godly Doctor Square but left the immortality pills for sale, then returned to the prince's palace to quietly cultivate. There was only half a month before the hunting feast would start. She needed to grow her strength as soon as possible. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang directly entered the room next door, trying to find Bei Chen. Bei Chen, do you know any places in the imperial city that are good for cultivation, like a waterfall or something? After thinking about yesterday, she believed that staying in the house would only raise her cultivation, but wouldn't strengthen the flesh. In her previous life, since young she was soaked in all sorts of medicinal and herbal baths, making her physique very powerful. Unfortunately, it was very different in this life. Bailey Hongzhuang's body wasn't at all stronger than others, and because of malnutrition, her constitution was even weaker than most other people. Even if she was cultivating now, she was still incapable of using her full power because her foundation, her body, was too shaky. Since it was like this, Bailey Hongzhuang chose to leave the palace to cultivate outside. Only by improving her physique, can her true fighting strength come out. Furthermore, cultivating the body can also bring her great benefits. By taking advantage of her young age to lay a solid foundation, cultivating in the future would become much easier. Bei Chen instantly understood what Bailey Hongzhuang meant, his heart secretly astonished. He already understood that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't Bailey Jintao's daughter, but Bailey Hongzhuang's changes truly weren't small. The overwhelming majority of cultivators only paid attention to their upgrading their cultivation, and completely ignored improving their physique. Especially cultivators in the younger generation, who simply had no clue of just how important strengthening the body was. Only some of the world's strongest powers would urge the importance of improving your physique when training the younger generation. This problem with cultivation wasn't very obvious in the beginning but grows more and more obvious as someone's cultivation reached the late stage. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang was a Lan family daughter, she only found out a few days ago, so how could she have known about the importance of improving your physique? It seems that Bailey Hongzhuang was even more mysterious than him. There's a small mountain not far outside the imperial city, inside there exists a waterfall. Bei Chen answered. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up, her lips loosening into a gentle smile. Really? Can you tell me exactly where? You intend to go there alone? Bei Chen asked. Even though it isn't too far from the imperial city, there's no shortage of demons and beasts roaming about. Going there alone to strengthen your body is too dangerous. It doesn't matter, I know my limits. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth curled up into a smile, her expression unusually staunch. In her previous life, she had often gone out to cultivate alone. Who knew how many dangerous experiences she had back then, but one thing was for sure, she was very experienced. Even if she didn't have much strength now, she still believed she would be able to return back safe and sound. I'll accompany you, we'll go together. Bei Chen's voice was indifferent, but his tone revealed his certainty on his decision. He would not change his mind. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled. I'm going there to cultivate. If you come with me, how will I ever feel a sense of danger? You can rest assured. Unless it's life-threatening and you're about to die, I won't act. Bei Chen smiled. You're my beloved wifey, if you run into danger, what will I do? Bailey Hongzhuang rolled her eyes. How will you come with me then? Where the wife is, the husband is there. Not waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to reply, Di Bei Chen immediately continued, I already sent some people to prepare, to take you and me, us two people together to go out on an outing. This also shows our sincere feelings between the two of us as husband and wife. Di Bei Chen. Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth twitched. Di Bei Chen didn't seem to hear her shout, leaving without another word. Master, I think Di Bei Chen is just worried for you. It's better to just let him come. Little White said slowly. Right now, Bailey Hongzhuang was only on the border of late stage. She could be considered pretty good in the younger generation. Only in Xingxian continent, demonic beasts could move unhindered. If she by some chance encountered a demonic beast stronger than her, Bailey Hongzhuang would be in a lot of danger. Little Black followed, nodding his head, Di Bei Chen just hates to part with Master. There's no harm if he comes as well. Bailey Hongzhuang's face revealed helplessness. Just as Little Black and Little White said, there's nothing wrong with bringing Di Bei Chen along too. In the Xingxian continent, aside from humans, there were also species of demonic beasts who could cultivate. A high-level demonic beast was very powerful. Compared the weak body of a humans, a demonic beasts were very strong. As a result, humans were often the ones at a disadvantage when fighting the demonic beasts. Furthermore, a demonic beast's reproduction speed was far faster than a human's. However, a demonic beast generally wasn't smart. Humans could create all kinds of cultivation manuals and merit laws, or martial skills to increase their fighting strength. The demonic beasts could only rely on their own strength, which was why the scales between the humans and beasts were always kept in check. A demonic beast's pelt could be used as leather. Blood, eyes, and so on could all be used as pill ingredients. To mankind, it could even be said that demonic beasts from head to toe were living treasures. Therefore, there were many cultivators who relied on hunting demonic beasts for a livelihood. So long as they killed a demonic beast, they would be able to sell its body for massive amounts of money. Di Bei Chen moved quickly. He was very clear that with Bailey Hongzhuang's current situation, the earlier she can cultivate, the better. Ordering a few men, he and Bailey Hongzhuang got on the carriage to leave the imperial city. Chapter 110. The two's hearts were very anxious. Yesterday, Li Yuyue came back home in low spirits, and nothing they said could comfort her. Li Qingqian also hated Di Bei Chen, but Li Yuyue truly acted without any thought yesterday. He couldn't just go up to Prince Chen and start to argue with him. He could only wait for an even better chance for him to step on Prince Chen underfoot. But today, Li Yuyue suddenly screamed first thing in the morning. Could something have happened again? When Li Yuyue went to sleep last night, she felt her face was a little itchy. After scratching it a little, she no longer cared. She never thought that when she got up in the morning to dress and look into the mirror, she would see her face was completely covered in freckles. Densely packed freckles covered both sides of her nose, making her original, peerlessly beautiful face ugly. She immediately started washing her face, but no matter how she cleaned, the freckles were deeply rooted in her face. It was just impossible to wash out. How could this be? Li Yuyue stroked her face, frightened. How did my face become like this overnight? Li Yuyue was still immersed in shock. She simply couldn't believe it was happening, that it was a dream. Her face that she was so proud of. When Li Qingqian and Zhao Wenxiang arrived at her room to see such a messy scene, the servant girls all stood to the side, not daring to speak. Yue, what happened to you? Zhao Wenxiang asked. She was very clear of her daughter's temperament, who was always pampered and never lacked anything. Unless someone provoked Li Yuyue, there was no way she'd be screaming first thing in the morning. Mother! Li Yuyue turned around, covered in tears to look at Zhao Wenxiang standing behind. When seeing how Li Yue's beautiful face was covered in tears, Zhao Wenxiang was overwhelmed by compassion, and after a more careful look, she suddenly noticed the change that had happened on Li Yue's face and could only stare blankly at her. "Yue, what happened to your face?" Li Yue shook her head, grieved, "I don't know. When I woke up this morning, it had already become like this. What can I do, ah?" She recalled Bailey Hongzhuang's words from yesterday. Before she's actually married, anything could happen. Now with her face like this, how could His Highness, the Crown Prince, still want to marry her? Li Qingqian's face also changed. His daughter may become the empress, but if her appearance was like this, how could she go out and see other people? Hurry up and bring a doctor. Li Qingqian waved his hand strongly, ordering the servant. Yes. The servant immediately seized the opportunity and withdrew, going back to the mansion to try and find a doctor. Li Qingqian and Zhao Wenxiang cautiously inspected Li Yue's face full of freckles. The densely packed freckles were simply enough to make anyone feel disgusted after a single glance. Where was her usually beautiful appearance? How could your perfectly good face have turned into this without any cause or reason? Zhao Wenxiang made a flustered look. The day of the wedding with the crown prince wasn't that far away. Once the news got out, their prime minister's prefecture would only become a huge joke. After many tries, Zhao Wenxiang and Li Yue concluded that those freckles would stay on Li Yue's face for some time. They were basically impossible to get rid of. After a long time, Li Qingqian finally spoke. "Who did you meet between yesterday and today?" Li Yue sobbed. "There wasn't anyone, apart from the fight with Bailey Hongzhuang outside, there wasn't any people." Hearing her words, Li Qingqian's face couldn't help but change slightly. "Don't tell me this has something to do with Bailey Hongzhuang." When Bailey Yuyan was disfigured, nobody knew why or how it happened. But Bailey Yuyan's and Bailey Hongzhuang's long-time grudge was something everybody knew. However, the person Li Qingqian sent to Godly Doctor Square to ask for an appointment with Bailey Hongzhuang had to find out that the square was temporarily closed, the reason being that, as surprising as it may be, Prince Chen and Princess Chen had gone on a trip to the mountains. He also sent some people to the prince's palace to ask for their whereabouts but was only told that they didn't know when Prince Chen and Chen Wangfei would return. The news caught the Li family unprepared. Bailey Hongzhuang left at such a crucial time. Was there really no way left? In comparison to the Li family's disaster, Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei Chen were actually very comfortable. He Mu drew the carriage outside as Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei Chen's eyes glanced over the busy roads and sceneries through the carriage's windows. "Now that we left the imperial city, there isn't any more need for you to act," Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. For an ordinary person, acting as a cripple all day would feel extremely uncomfortable. Dibei Chen smiled faintly. "If we run into someone inside the mountain range, our identity would definitely be exposed. For that reason, it was still necessary to continue to be a cripple. If they were to find any clues, acting so long all would have been for naught." He had endured so much just to finally get a lead on the information. Since he could stand up again, why should he continue to hide? Now, it wouldn't be long before he could stand proudly in front of everybody again. Suddenly, a sly smile appeared in the corner of Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. "Would it be better for me to help you change your appearance?" Dibei Chen raised an eyebrow. "You can even change faces?" Traveling in Jianghu, the technique of changing faces were essential tricks to learn. But although most ordinary face-changing techniques were very easy to see through, it was still better than nothing. As for true face-changing techniques, it could even be said that they've long died out. It was said that 1,000 years ago, face-changing techniques were capable of creating a fake face that could be easily passed off as real. Only, it's a pity that there were none left. Bailey Hongshanag nodded her head slightly. I have a face-changing technique that's incomparable to other ordinary ones. I guarantee you'll be surprised. Since you said it's so amazing, you can test it on me. Dibei Chen's eyes had a spoiling light to it. He had clearly seen the crafty look in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. It's very likely that this girl had a bad idea in store for him. After telling Dibei Chen to close his eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang began to change Dibei Chen's face. Such a handsome face, she might as well disguise it nicely. Master, Dibei Chen's beautiful face was completely destroyed by you. Looking at the new face Bailey Hongzhuang made, Little Black couldn't bear it and covered his eyes. This was simply something you couldn't look at. Little White's mouth twitched, and secretly decided in his heart, he could offend anyone else, but he mustn't offend the master. Master still hasn't forgotten how Dibei Chen had bullied her on the wedding night. Just a look at Dibei Chen's destroyed face, and you would know just how much anger Bailey Hongzhuang truly harbored in her heart. After a long time, Bailey Hongzhuang finally clapped her hands and smiled, all done. Perfect. Dibei Chen opened his eyes. Seeing the bright grin on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, a smile bloomed on his lips. Take a look, is my drawing skills good? A wide grin split Bailey Hongzhuang's face as she handed Dibei Chen the mirror. Taking the mirror, Dibei Chen stared at the completely different man in the mirror. His smile froze. He could only see an astonished man with a big, boorish face. A big beard ran across his face and a huge mole sat right by his lip. The face I made for you isn't bad. With this, I guarantee even if we meet somebody, it'd impossible for them to recognize you. Although Dibei Chen's changed face showed helplessness, looking at the completely different man in the mirror, stormy waves appeared inside his black pupils. This face-changing technique was absolutely the best he had ever seen. If his mind wasn't clear, he wouldn't even be able to believe that this was actually his face. Wife's face-changing technique is naturally excellent, but I don't know what other people will think when they see such a large, rough man marrying such a beauty like you. Their faces would probably turn green with envy. Dibei Chen's uncouth face laughed, one hand resting on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. His boorish appearance released a bold and unconstrained air around him. For some inexplicable reason, when she looked at Dibei Chen looking like that, a bad premonition rose in her mind. After some time, Bailey Hongzhuang and company, probably needs to be changed, arrived at their destination. Wang Fei, were finally at the waterfall. He Mu called from outside the carriage. Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei Chen slowly walked out of the carriage together. He Mu's eyes widened as he stared at the rough, unfamiliar face and couldn't help but ask, stunned, who is he? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.